Welcome to Ben Nevares podcast with your host, Ben Nevares.
So you should be able to hear all the things. Am I loud in your ears or am I pretty okay?
You're pretty reasonable, yeah.
Okay, good. So you're pretty reasonable as well. Can you hear yourself?
I can hear myself, yeah.
Good, perfect. I think it's always the coolest thing to be able to hear yourself.
Yep. No, we've done somewhere in the 5 to 10 for podcasts.
Nice.
We had it going every Thursday for about a week, and then it was every other Thursday. Then it was once a month, and then we've just held off for like our big events. So we'll do post CrossFit Games, we'll probably do a post Open or post quarterfinals, kind of a recap, let everyone know what's new, how people been doing.
When did you guys start?
That
who did you do it with?
That was about a year ago. So it's Justin, Kiefer, and basically myself, and then we'll bring on a couple of others as well. It was mainly just the two of them, and honestly, two people when you're doing CrossFit updates is a little bit boring.
I feel like it's so niche that you're like looking for a very specific group of people.
If it's two bears, sure. Like those guys can just run it all day.
All day.
Who are some of the other ones that I'll actually listen to instead of just the clips? The Stiff Socks.
I've not listened to Stiff Socks.
It is Trevor Newman and his buddy.
I don't even know if I know Trevor Newman.
I feel like you would see clips.
I'm
they did
sure.
all the like Brad, Chad, Kyle, little spoof clips.
Yeah.
He does some comedy, some regular stand up as well. What are like some of the main ones you watch or listen to podcast wise?
I listen to Rogan's.
Yep.
I got into listening to a lot of Lex Friedman. I think just because of his guests are fantastic, but his question asking is so well done. It is so engaging.
These are the two guys right here. Not Bobby Lee. Yeah.
I know Trevor Wallace,
Yep.
and then I don't know this.
Oh,
other dude.
what did I say his last name?
Trevor something else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know Trevor Wallace.
Yeah.
I saw him do stand up here during Super Bowl weekend. That Saturday, you had Bert, Tom, Bobby Lee, Trevor Wallace, Shane Gillis. Like a fucking insane lineup, and I got to go see them. And absolutely loved it.
Did they do a whole?
Each of them did their own set, so I think they probably had like 15 minutes for Trevor, 15 minutes for and then finally Tom did like half an hour, let's say, and then Bert finally did another half hour, and they both came on stage together, and then they did their jam, and that was super sweet.
Yeah, Bert was the last one I saw. Oh no, it was Tom Segura. It was Tom Segura at Cosmo. He did a full set, all on his own.
He is so fucking good. It seems so seamless, and I understand that's the whole jam. But I've gone with people before, and it's like, oh, he's like making this up right on the spot. It's like, no. This is so well. Everything from his laughs to the way he walks, everything is structured to make you feel a certain way, and it works every time.
And there are some things that are tailored to that specific set.
Correct.
It mentions a couple of Las Vegas things, some things about hookers or gambling, but those are not just sidebars. Those are things he put in there on purpose.
It's amazing. Yeah. Like the communication behind what are they called? Behind comedians is just, I think, the most beautiful thing ever. And it's just such a skill, and I think that it zeroes in on a specific skill within communication as a whole. And so it focuses on laughter, communicating ideas through a joke or through comedy, versus like a business or an educational podcast. It's like, how can we make something that's maybe big or complicated and bring it down to something simple and retainable, but not necessarily comedic.
That's why anytime I try and tell you the joke that he said on stage, it's funny, way funnier to me than you. You're like, oh, okay, I get it. That's funny, but it's the delivery. It's the setup. I love normally the last 5 minutes of a set, all of a sudden they tie back in the original jokes or thoughts. And you're like, oh, I forgot about how funny that was. Yep, that's the one.
I love a good callback.
And then they're done. And you're like, oh, yep, that's a good callback. Exactly.
I love a good callback. I want to go watch. There's a place here at the district, I believe, that has like a comedy cellar, or the Wise Guys comedy.
Town Square.
Town Square.
Yep.
I would like to go up there and get some, like, I'm sure they're cheaper tickets, but a little more intimate environment. I've done the comedy in a round, and I've done comedy in I guess the Rio has the Laugh Factory, or the Comedy Cellar, whichever one it is, and I definitely prefer the more intimate style.
If you are looking for something that you might never be able to get a chance for, actually 100% never be able to get a chance for, at the Tropicana, because they're going to demo it.
Oh, that's right.
So the demo is going to happen in the next month or so. They're going to, they're
Is that soon?
They're issuing all the final player cards or points and all that, and they're going to terminate everybody's, free rooms and all the little things you get for gambling, and then they're going to slowly close it and demo it. And so they have, it's not a Laugh Factory, but it's
It's comedy.
Yep, comedy club. It's pretty intimate. I don't think they fit any more than 100 people in there.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's such a cool part of history that's kind of dying. Are you from this town?
No, I've been here 11 years now, 2014. Yeah, this is year 11.
You've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of...
Goes by real fast, though.
You're a local.
Oh, for sure. I actually just got my Nevada ID in the mail 2 days ago.
What?
Well, so I wanted to keep the California thing. So originally it was for college, right? So I didn't claim citizenship or whatever. I claimed my California ID, everything I got sent back to my parents' house, and then I just lived out here. Then once I was graduated, I just kept it. I actually renewed it online, changed my address, so I had a California ID that said my Las Vegas address on it. Plus I worked nightclubs and stuff, so I had all my hotel badges, so anytime I needed to get the local rates or the discount, I just flash them that. And then finally it expired when I turned 30. So in August I turned 30, and then I needed to get a new one. And I had my car registered here, my house here, my license already said here, so it was kind of hard not to get the Nevada one.
Dude.
And then it took 6 months for it to get here. It literally came in the mail 2 days ago.
Why did it take so long?
I don't know.
That's odd.
Yeah, they give you the piece of paper that's a temporary, and they say, oh, your license will be here in 5 to 7 business days. If not, here's the number. You can have it reissued. So I waited about a week, called. They said, oh, no, it's too early. A month or two, they said, well, when does it expire? Your paper one. March. Okay, well, in February, if you haven't got it by then call us. I'm like, what's the whole point of this process?
That's wild.
So in February, I called, and they said, oh, yeah, no, we have it. It must have just got flipped in the mail somewhere, and it got sent back to us, and we'll send it right back. So, okay. When I called the last 3 times, you couldn't have just checked that?
No, it's too complicated. It
was too hard. It was too hard to look in the mail and see if they got it back.
They're busy.
Yeah.
You're going to make them work when they're busy?
Yeah. So I've just been rocking this piece of paper and a passport.
Nice. So I'm interested very much so in your story. Like, I saw just a little bit of your stuff. I read a little bit about you.
Yep.
But I would like to hear it, I guess, from the horse's mouth, if you will.
Yeah. You want to start with what you found, and I can tiptoe around that, fill in the cracks?
No, I want you to go ahead and drive that piece of it. So I want to hear from the very get-go. Where are you from? What was your upbringing like? And then, let's. All right. Where are you from? What was your upbringing?
Technically, I was born in California, but my mom had lived in Hawaii already for 10 years. So she came back for the family doctor so that I could, be birthed. But we went right back to Hawaii. So I'm from Hawaii. I lived in Maui till I was 8.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I mean, being a kid in the beach, cool. Being a kid anywhere, running in a grass field on the concrete, I'm sure
also
I could have related to anybody's upbringing in that sense. But yeah, Hawaii, Maui, pretty cool. So that's where I spent my first 8 years. Me, my mom, my sister, just living in a 1-bedroom apartment. She's been an industry worker her whole life. My sister's 3 years older, so her and I are pretty tight. Pretty much fast forward to 2000. I moved to California.
Hold on. I'm going to ask some questions.
Yeah, sure.
Where's mom? Where's mom now? And then what was mom doing? What do you mean by industry worker?
She started like roller skating waitress at 16 or 17 and is always
Cool.
yeah, not like sex industry. Come on now. Is that what you were
No, I
leaning
just
gotcha.
I know what industry meant, because here
Yep.
the industry I think would say like oh, you're a
Nightclubs,
gambler
pool
or
parties,
yeah.
Bartending, waitressing,
Got it.
bar management, whatever, kind of bouncing back and forth between that whole realm.
Very cool. How did that influence your decision to be inside of the personal training or the fitness industry? Did it at all?
No, not really.
Okay, cool.
I don't think that had any calling on it. I wasn't trying to be an industry worker as well or a bartender, and I wasn't not trying to be one. I think she was trying to not have me be one, but other than that, not really any influence. She's in San Diego now. Also, my sister is in San Diego now.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, if I was giving a little bit of her backstory, she lived in Maui for 10 years before. We lived in California for 10 years while I went to high school. And then as soon as I graduated, she went back to Maui. Yeah, for like almost another 10 years, if that math's out. And then she recently moved to San Diego because my sister had a child. Yeah. So now she's
Interesting
grandma.
life your mother has lived.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
So now she's grandma, and actually now she's grandma to 2 children, back-to-back years. And she is still working restaurants. She's actually in one of the San Diego casinos, bartending, restaurant managing, whatever she's doing there. So same, just different.
Where's Dad at this point?
Like alive, just not super present. When I was living in Hawaii, he was a little bit more present because that's where he was living. Mom was basically mom and dad as far as I was concerned. Dad was like forced upon me almost. Not like in a weird way, just like, okay, time to go spend time with your dad. I was like, I don't want to go. You know, it wasn't enjoyable. He has like a long history of being a shitbag, drug abuser kind of thing. So when I moved to California, I basically didn't hear from him for like 5 or 10 years.
He had no desire to reach out.
Apparently not. Yeah, no birthdays, no phone calls, no nothing.
That's rough.
And as a kid, you're like, shit, no birthday presents, no Christmas presents. Damn. But at the same time, I also didn't really care. I played sports. I did Boy Scouts. I did basically every extracurricular. Mom showed up to all those, was part of those, made sure someone showed up to those. So like I said, she was mom and dad. And then when I moved to California, I was also living with my grandparents. So and then it was grandma, grandpa, mom, sister, brother, or me and my sister.
Nice.
So it was 5-person household there. And then I had the father figure. So I wasn't, searching out for something or felt lost. I had my grandpa. He was basically my dad.
That's pretty cool.
During that time.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. And then
was he a good dad?
Yeah, he's cool. He's a little I guess I'd say, yeah, he's a little introverted. He's a program manager, computer guy. So even when we'd have family stuff, he would definitely be involved. And then about halfway through, he'd kind of disappear, go upstairs, do some computer work. You're like, oh, David's gone again.
Just doing his
people
thing.
Like, where's Grandpa? Oh, he's probably upstairs sitting on the computer, which is fine. That's
his jam. That's where he was comfortable.
Yeah, but no, I mean, he took us to ball games. He was my candy buddy, so he'd like sneak me candy when I knew I wasn't supposed to have any. He was I'd go walk around with Costco, or walk around with him at Costco, do samples. I mean, he did all the stuff I think a dad would normally do.
Fair.
Yep. As far as what I've heard,
Yeah. Was there a difference in culture coming from Hawaii to here? Was there a different pace that you felt? I don't know, since you were young, I don't know that you would have like really been able to tell the difference. Yeah. But was there any sort of difference?
I mean, I think right when I was moving out here, I had already started T-ball.
Okay.
So I was already into some sports and scooters or skateboards. So when I transitioned to California, it was just the concrete jungle. It was the same. I found the skate parks. I found the outdoor activities that I was already into. And other than that, no. I think, okay, if we're talking culture, this is the craziest one that I experienced when I first moved out to California. Friend's mom picks us up, takes us to a baseball field or, some park for some just hangout. And my buddy Blake yells at his mom. Not only yells at her by her first name. I had never heard that in my life. Shit. I knew my mom's first name, but I'd never called her anything other than mom. Her name's Melissa. I can say it. I'm not afraid to say it. It seems a little weird, but yeah, all of a sudden I'm like, oh God, is he going to get hit? What's about to happen? Nothing. That's just how they talked.
I don't like that.
And I don't know if that's a isolated incident more so than it is a cultural thing. In California, I wasn't living in San Francisco like the city. It is 20, 30 minutes inland, so suburbs.
Yeah.
Gated communities and soccer moms. That's how I describe it. So I would say the entitlement is also a little bit higher.
Yeah.
A lot of male breadwinners and mother, caretakers. So I think that relationship kind of also falls in line.
Yeah.
Dad's around. Oh, get yourself in check. Mom's around. Fucking let loose, scream at her, take advantage of her, that type of stuff. So that was weird. But I think that's just because of my household, my, mother-father relationship. I don't know if that's because it's Hawaii versus California. I
think less about maybe that location difference. I think I am similar to you, where I would not say my mother's first name, would not dare to yell at my mother, or definitely not my father. I knew if I did, there was one time where it was like I lied to my mom, or I did something like I talked back to my mom, and she's like, okay, don't worry about it. You'll find out when Dad gets here. And Dad gets home and he's like, so I heard you and I got beat. And I was like, okay, well, like this is not something that's allowed.
Yeah.
So maybe not necessarily something that's location dependent, but maybe either generational, but like same generation, I guess, right? So not that. It could be like a status of like income.
Yeah.
And like the family structure of
I think the
Dad.
structure is huge on that.
Yeah. Dad being gone all the time, the allowance of, I worked at a country club and saw a little bit of that, of like this entitled kind of feeling, which from all my kiddos, 9, 10, 11 years old, a lot of good kids, but at the same time I could see that, oh, Dad's always working, Mom's kind of like managing the house, and Mom's kind of tired. Yeah,
it makes sense. I mean, if you are the mother in that situation, you're taking care of all the day-to-day duties.
It's a lot.
Discipline on top of that becomes almost too much of a battle. You have to try and create, some like homeostasis there, or some balance. And if you're the one who's also getting him in trouble and creating this, combative nature, just wait for Dad to do it. He's only going to be there for a couple hours. Let him, wail on him.
And Dad's already tired.
Or whatever it is. Yeah. So Dad is fed up,
not
trying to handle any of that.
Yeah. It's wild.
Yep.
All right. So you get here. And was it interesting being the new kid at school, or was it?
Which school are we talking about?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
that was part of my question of what you found.
So
I went to 4 schools.
I know that.
Yeah.
So 4 schools during college.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So before college,
okay, got you.
Being the new
here,
kid,
meaning California.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess you have experience being the new kid now that you know this kind of helps you in the future, I guess.
Right. Nah, I mean, I was honestly, if anything, I was more ready to move to California than I was to move up in grade school. Right. So as you transition from preschool to the kindergarten, K through 5, or into middle school, right? I think I was better suited as a white kid to come out to California. If you're a white boy in Maui or in Hawaii, I mean, you are
the minority.
The minority. You are the outsider, right? You are the weirdo. You're the one who has to try and figure out how to fit in, basically. And from having a brother and sister grow up through the whole system, I know that, they got the shit beat out of them a couple times. Or they got jumped a couple of times. They were basically called names for being the white kid, or being the weirdo. So I think moving to California was probably easier being the new kid.
Yeah.
Just some
you're another white
9-year-old white kid who plays baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I fit right in.
It's kind of nice.
I found my crew. Like I said, I started in Boy Scouts. I was every sport under the sun. So it's pretty easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, okay. So
same school through 3, 4, and 5. Then you got middle school.
Yeah.
That was chill. I was definitely more in my skater emo kid phase. I think like a lot of us in that generation.
Yeah. Definitely emo. Yeah.
No, I was
Side.
Hot Topic, everything, skinny jeans, chains, bracelets. I mean, I also lived at the skate park every free moment I had.
That's wild. Do you still skate today?
I have a skateboard in the garage. I was doing a lot more longboarding through college. Now, just not really.
That's fair.
The balance of wanting to do skateboarding and being scared to show up to football practice with a rolled ankle starts to weigh on you. You can't do things like snowboarding and skateboarding if you want to be a football player or baseball player, because if you show up and you're dinged up, well, you didn't get dinged up at practice. Why are you being irresponsible outside of practice? And it's tough as a 10, 12-year-old. It's definitely more of a business move as a 18, 19, 20-year-old.
Yeah.
But no, that I could feel that going through high school where, okay, you just don't have as much time to go do fun stuff like that if you play 3 sports. So.
The sport should be the fun thing, theoretically.
Yep. And they were. That was my quote-unquote job. As long as my mom said, you're in school, you're doing sports, consider that your job. We'll make sure everything's taken care of. Not going to put you out at a McDonald's as a 15-year-old while you actually have to be at football practice at the same time.
It's nice. It's kind.
Yeah.
I'm a hardworking mom.
No, I appreciate it. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So you're in high school. What kind of person so middle school, what kind of person did you have? I guess, did you have potential as an athlete, and that's why they were saying these things when you were younger?
I mean,
like, were you a good baseball player, or were, like,
I'd like to think I was good at basically anything that I tried. I don't know in reality what level that is. I just know that based on the kids I played with, I was better than most of them. I was always a starter. I was a leadoff hitter or a first line player. When I played indoor soccer, I was the goalie. Like I always had a place on the field. So at least good enough for that type of stuff. I also just think I was in a much more supportive environment. Like I said, mom was all about it. Grandparents were bought in. I had other cousins that might not have been as inclined to a couple of those things. So, like, yes, maybe.
Okay. So was going to compete, I guess, collegiately on your mind or on your parents' minds? Or
not at all. So let's see, if we're talking football, that's because that's my main, bloodline. I tore my ACL freshman year.
Rough.
Yeah, so was a starter both ways and special teams freshman year. Last game of the season against the rival high school. We kick off. I'm on the kickoff team. Boom. We're on defense. First play of the game on defense, tore my ACL.
How?
Non-contact. Just running across the field. Yeah. The majority of ACL tears are non-contact. Something crazy. I think 70-75% of them.
God damn, I didn't realize it was that high.
Yep. It's just, especially in the slowing down mechanics, a little bit more heel heavy, a little bit more straight leg. You hit that spot, get that shock wave go through the knee.
Rough.
Yep. So that was an experience. I remember being on the sideline, just like hands over my face, crying, basically. I didn't really know what the implications of that were. I thought I was like, I'm never going to play football again. My life is over. That's basically what I was thinking.
That's a scary thought for a
As we're 2 minutes into the game, first quarter, rival high school game. Like, this sucks.
Yeah, that's
and then shitty. The recovery on that was pretty rough. Almost a year before surgery because my growth plates hadn't fused. And then back then, ACL recovery for someone in that age range was just not like it is now. I was basically crutches for 3 or 4 weeks, no mobility, then could walk around with a isolated leg brace, however many degrees it was locked in.
Yeah.
I think I remember 6 or 8 weeks finally getting on a bike and pedaling. Nowadays, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I see guys tear their ACL on Saturday, go for surgery on Sunday, and they're walking around at their History 101 class on Monday.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
It's a different game.
And they are just, I mean, they're grinding on the recovery.
Yeah.
But the possibility of that return to play is just so much easier.
I wonder what the average return to play now is versus.
I think when they
past.
talk about, the different levels of, okay, now you can take lateral movement. Now you can do more weight bearing or explosive type exercises. Okay, now you're good to return to play. I don't think that has changed a whole lot. I think they still have it in that 4 to 6 month range. But what you can do immediately just changes a lot faster. You can start strengthening the connective tissue around the knee much sooner, get range of motion back. And I think that's like the big battle when you have those major injuries or major reconstructions, is getting that range of motion back. So my range of motion is a little effed.
Can you extend entirely or not really?
So this knee actually goes to -4 or 5. So it goes past the range of motion.
Yeah.
This goes to 0, which is fine. Except now it's a little bit
off.
My hips, when I stand, I kind of have that sassy girl hip thing.
Yeah. You just got to tell your other ACL.
Yeah.
Make it even.
Sure.
Come on.
But as far as flexion goes, this goes to about 140 or so with just a nice light pull. This only goes to about 130.
Okay.
Right? Is that the right way to say it? Because
Yeah.
So it's tough. My squat mechanics have definitely been affected by it. But we're 15 years later.
Yeah.
I'm squatting the heaviest I've ever squatted, the most athletic I've ever been. So I can't complain. It's also the most pain on a day-to-day basis. I don't remember there ever really being pain the first 5 or 10 years, but that's also before I started CrossFit. So maybe it's just the CrossFit.
My question is, like, how much recovery are you doing for, like, how much rolling or therapy, like the stuff that you learned
nowadays or back then?
Nowadays, do you still use the stuff that was given to you as a resource then?
A little tough to say, mainly because it's been so long, 15 years since I had the surgery. I do remember my 2-day-a-week physical therapy at the Kaiser Permanente being very, like, remedial, I guess you could say.
Really?
The 3 or 4 people that were also in the clinic were just older, 50, 60, 70-year-olds that had knee replacements or hip replacements. And so I think when you're in that type of facility instead of a college training center or maybe like one of the local places here that specializes in athlete training, it's step downs and, balance exercises and just going up and down the little 3-step handrail that they have. So I don't remember it being very difficult. I remember specifically doing a couple of things, and like Mary over here is like, "Oh, that's so good," and I'm like, "Okay, sure."
Like you should be able to, and then those athletes as well, because we're gonna call those like those older clients athletes. Yep. Those athletes should probably have more intense training as well. Like even if it's sports specific, or like a sports mindset PT. It should still be able to be applied to an older population. Oh, yeah. In my opinion, like it
should be a workout when you're there.
It should be.
Yep. I have 2 clients in the last year or so. One right now that he just stopped going to his PT. He's like, I get better workout when I come here with you, and we do all the little warm up exercises we do. That's our whole session there. Like we do these warm ups, and then we do a whole workout after. And he told his PT too as well. He asked, "Are you doing your exercise?" He goes, "Well, yes and no." He goes, "I do them with my trainer kind of, but we basically just do full workout sessions. I don't really do it at my home anymore."
I also had a very remedial experience with PT with my shoulder. I tore my labrum, and it was, all right, you're going to hold this weight. You're going to do circles. You're hanging, go one way, go the other. Now go and get on the elliptical for 20 minutes. Make sure your hands are on both of them, and then that's your session. And that was a regular session. And then the PTA was just sitting there watching TV, watching novellas. I was like this is...
Yeah, you could do a whole lot more with that time.
This is insane. It's just, and I don't understand if it's just lack of care. Like where the disconnect is. Is it from the education down to the client, or down to the PTA, or the PT, the PTA, and then down to the client? Or is the disconnect the PT or PTA that's like, they'll be fine. Like they don't really need it that intense. They'll be good. Is it a lack of care, or is it a lack of education, or a lack of both?
I think it's more so experience. So all the really good PTs and chiros that I've come across have been working inside gym settings. They take part in Olympic weightlifting or CrossFit or endurance races. They know what it takes on a day-to-day basis to get through that type of training. So they have the experience, and they know that when they leave your PT office, what they're going to get into. I think especially as you get into some of those, I don't think they have Kaiser out here, but whatever
cool. I mean, it's
whatever the general, Sunrise Hospital or the most standard healthcare facility that you're going to get, I don't think the people that are employed there have that kind of experience. I think they are well educated. They obviously, they are assumed to be very well educated.
I like that.
No, I mean, it's fair to say that you can assume they are very educated. They've gone through the schooling. It's pretty tough to cheat your way through medical school. Pretty easy to cheat your way through a, history degree.
Yeah. I think it's, I lost my train of thought, but theoretical education is very different than having the practical experience of, I understand what it is to do 5 sets of doubles with 85%. Like, what is that going to do to my body, and how am I going to react to that? Versus seeing it on paper, and it's like, oh yeah, like that makes theoretical sense. And then so you apply that to a team setting, or you apply that, but like you don't take into account the time that takes, or the recovery that's needed after. So yes,
if we're jumping domains, if you are a trainer who's not doing your own training programs at some point, you're missing out on a huge part of what it is your profession is. You need to feel what they're feeling. And if you're just writing programs because these numbers sound good, or because that's what the textbook says, then you're missing out on a huge part of what it is you're supposed to be doing.
The first time I did I had done other people's weightlifting programs, and then I had just finished my master's, and a lot of it was talking about weightlifting. So I was like, I'm going to write my own program. And I wrote this like triples of like full cleans or full snatches from like one of my first workouts, and I was like, I wrote 5 sets of triples. This is so insanely difficult.
Yeah, when you do the math of the tonnage, right, the reps, sets, weight, and you're like, wow, that's a lot.
I was like, I can't write this. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, and we don't like triples anymore. Like, yeah, we can do triples, but at like 60%. Like, it is for a specifically designed intention. Just like we're working on form, we're working on dropping, we're working on catching high, or whatever that goal is. But it was a nice little wake up call to be like, I would have, if I never would have done this for myself, I would have written this for somebody, and I would have like murdered them.
Yeah. I still find that sometimes today, though. I coach a teen class, and there's certain things where I'm like, oh, this combination sounds good. And I'm just like, all right, we're going to run it. And they're like, what are we doing today? And I just am like, oh yeah, that was it, what we're doing. And I tell them, and we're about halfway through, and I said, okay, audible, or, surprise. And sometimes I'll claim it and say, all right, well, I know we talked about doing 5 rounds of that, but I think 2 is plenty.
100%. Yeah.
And you just realize, and that, I mean, you got to be accountable on that. It's not live or die by the numbers on the piece of paper. That's the whole process with RPE, or the velocity-based training, is like, there's ranges.
Yeah.
And you're different every day. And yeah.
I think that it gives such a nice allowance. At the same time, like if I was like my last 2 or 3 weeks of a training program getting ready for either nationals or worlds, was I going to like, oh, well, I don't feel great today. It, to some degree at that time, I was like, it doesn't matter. Like I only have a couple weeks, and like let's say I haven't hit the opener I want, which by that point I definitely would have. But whatever like the issue is that I'm experiencing in that moment, it's like I don't have another option other than to just shut the fuck up and get it done.
And the cycle that you're talking about versus the cycle that I was originally talking about is very different, right? A regular training day versus I have 2 weeks before nationals and I'm stepping on stage. So whatever you have planned or whatever, you know, the structure is, yeah, you almost have to just suck it up. If it takes more time, if it takes more attempts, if it takes more mobility, if it takes more caffeine, whatever it is that day, yeah, I agree. At some point, there are parts of the year where this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not going to be successful down the road or next weekend is what we're more so talking about. Context
matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, context matters. I do like using RPEs. I don't really have access to velocity-based training.
Yeah.
There are little magnets that I saw.
Couple $100?
Not even, dude. There were like you get the magnet for free and you pay a subscription, kind of like Whoop.
Like Whoop.
Yeah. And so it's like $30 a month and you get one magnet. And like, dude, I was like, holy shit, I'm going to add this to my clients.
Yeah.
And then I put it in my Safari with my other 100 tabs of stuff that I'm going to buy one day. And then I was cleaning out my Safari stuff. And then one of the ones I clicked X on was that one. And I was like, fuck. And then I haven't been able to find it since.
I mean, if you're already doing the math on 30 times a year, you could buy a $300 unit.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Perspective.
Yeah. And then not have to pay a subscription at that point, just have the software.
Yeah, but the facility is like a college campus, the Tendo units, the Olympic training centers. Yeah, those are next level. Those are very cool to use. But, I mean,
they're hard.
1%.
Seriously. And also at the same time, like how much value is it going to bring me at the end of the day? Like,
well, I would say if you structure your entire training program around it, pretty good value.
Fair. But I don't know that like in CrossFit, could I do that?
Right. Are we talking about Olympic weightlifting? Are we talking about CrossFit? Are we talking about powerlifting? Potentially different answers for all of them.
Yeah.
If we're talking about bodybuilding, I mean, who cares?
Yeah. Never going to use.
Yeah. More time under tension. You don't care about the speed anyway.
Yeah. So I guess, like, could I use that training? Because I can't revolve my entire program around velocity-based training inside CrossFit, right?
Well, if you think of CrossFit like your different modalities of training, right? They break it down into gymnastics, monostructural, and strength. But I would break down strength into powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting. And even though it's kind of lower on the pyramid, if you look at you know which one I'm talking about?
No.
There is it'd be higher on the pyramid. The less important things. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there is a fitness version or a CrossFit specific version as well. And on the bottom, I believe nutrition is on the bottom. And then, you know, it's the good building blocks. And at the very top, it's sport or the Olympic weightlifting, the fancy stuff that doesn't matter as much if you're talking about trying to build and progress from the ground up.
Interesting. From I think sometimes I have such a clouded perspective on how to approach the sport. Like, it's like, oh, I should be focusing on like the skill set behind. I want to be able to perfect.
It's not clouded because that's what the majority of people think. Does that make sense? You're not abnormal because you think it is what I'm saying. Is the majority,
everybody's clouded.
Everybody, yes. I guess that's what I'm saying. Everybody is clouded.
Yeah.
Most people need to print that out, that triangle that I'm talking about, and put it on their screensaver, their refrigerator, or whatever it is, as a reminder. Myself included. I'm not saying that I'm focused mostly on nutrition. No, I mean I'm focused mostly on the fun stuff. Increasing my muscle up capacity. Getting 5 extra pounds on my snatch. Like the time and effort that it takes to do those two type of things is nowhere near the minimal effort it takes to improve your nutrition.
Say that again in a different way.
Yeah. You will spend way more time trying to add 5 pounds to your snatch than you will making your calorie intake more suitable for your training. Takes seconds and minutes to plan out your day of food or to shop or to actually eat what you need to eat. It takes, I mean, you were just talking about your programs, right? It takes cycles of your program, some grueling days, long, stressful sessions. And if we're talking about reps, sets, minutes, hours, and you're like, 5-pound PR on my snatch.
It takes so long.
But that's what we crave.
I think because the other thing is so easy.
Because they're sexy. I mean, if you go to the L1, the L2, and they tell you that, these are the sexy movements. These are what people want to do because that's what Instagram looks like. That's what Instagram likes, right? That's what people like on Instagram. That's what looks good.
Yeah.
Nutrition doesn't always look good. A nice plate of acai berry bowl, sure, it looks appealing, but
it's fantastic.
You already know, oh man, that's so expensive. Those dragonberries, cutting up all that fruit. It's not hard. It's just not sexy.
It's fair.
Yeah.
I think it's almost it's a foundational standard for me. If I'm going to be just existing at any capacity, whether I'm competing or not, it's just don't eat McDonald's every day. Like those are basic things that I think, or like if I'm going to go out to eat, like how about we choose Chipotle? Like, and then you can choose what goes inside your bowl, or even if you're going out, like I can select a fish, I can select a steak, and it is more expensive usually, but just at the store, it's like I'm going to grab a couple extra.
If you're talking about that option versus cooking it yourself, sure, it is a little bit more expensive.
I hate cooking.
If you're talking about that option versus sporadically going out for dinners, no. Because if you go out to dinner versus, I almost put Chipotle kind of in that middle ground. I know there's a lot of people that budget around that. They get double this, double that, double this, double that. Yep. They split it into 2 meals, and now it's only a $6 meal. Good luck trying to recreate that at a grocery store for the same quality, basically.
Yeah.
So there are some life hacks, you could say, around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally cut out crap, which is what I just kind of umbrella term eating out, fast food, candy bars, chips, and then transfer your liquid calories into food calories, right? Avoid the liquid calories because those are the sneaky ones. You can go for the zero options, Gatorade Zero. For someone like myself that still craves the feeling of drinking a Gatorade or might not want to just only drink a gallon of water, I like to supplement it or kind of go half and half. But if you're going to Starbucks, there goes a meal. If you're talking about an extra meal every day times 7, there goes an extra pound. If we're talking about the math on fat gain versus fat loss, people that eat well 5 days a week and then just lose it on the weekend. I'm not talking one cheap meal or one piece of candy. I'm talking about the person who has no understanding of their nutrition. They just might be confused. They might think they're doing it right, and then they end up gaining a pound every week instead of losing a pound every week. Tough to get those bigger sets of muscle ups if you're gaining a pound every week. It's not muscle. I promise you that.
How do you teach somebody to make those decisions and make it last?
Normally you have to kind of dissect where you're at to understand where you want to go. So if you're not doing some kind of log for at least a week, it's going to be hard to guesstimate what you're really doing. And honestly, in that first week, I would say don't even try and change anything, because then you're basically lying to yourself, right? If you try and clean up your diet for a week and you write it all down, you say, this is what I eat every week. Really? That's what you eat every week and you look like that? That's not realistic. Let's be honest. Anything you put in your body, if you're going to go eat McDonald's 3 times this week, that's fine. Just write it down so we can have an understanding of where you're really at. And then you can do a bunch of different things. Spreadsheet, highlight, circle, cut out things.
It's not sexy.
yeah, it's not fun to make spreadsheets and try and figure out where you can add protein and take out fats. But for someone who's interested in doing that, that's a great way to start. Write it all out. Be honest with yourself. Do a little bit of math. And then, I would say like take a pink highlighter. Anything that's fast food or processed or high in sugar or liquid calories, put a pink Sharpie on that. And those are the first things you take care of. Don't worry about 6 servings of fruits and vegetables and, 200 grams of protein and this and that all at once. Baby steps. And if you're asking how to not just incorporate it, but make it sustainable, you can only focus on one thing at a time for so long. So cutting out the sugars or cutting out the liquid calories. If you know you drink 2 real sodas every single day, okay, let's try and do like, if instead of 14 a week, let's maybe do 3 a week. That'll give you 1 on Friday, 1 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, right? You just potentially are losing weight only off of that.
Almost guaranteed.
Almost guaranteed.
You make it sound so simple.
It is simple. It's just hard.
It's hard to create a new habit, sure. But like once the habit is created, it's like
waking up early is hard.
That's hard. That's hard.
But you know what? I look back through high school, college, and my first 2 or 3 years outside of college, I was up at 4 or 5 a.m. because I was training. It wasn't so hard when I had to do it every day. When that was the choice that I made because that was the agreement that I signed on my contract. That was the class that I chose in high school, was the 0 period. It's like, I can't not go to the class. So I signed up for the class. I'll fail, right? I'll lose my scholarship if I don't show up to weight training. And honestly, I wasn't worried about losing my scholarship. I was worried about all the running or burpees I'd have to do if I was late, right? When I first started at Camp Rhino, 6 a.m., 5 days a week. That was just the class I like to go to. I said, okay, I'm going to get my training done at 6 a.m. That's when I showed up. It wasn't so hard when I just made the decision and I stuck with it. And I did that for years and years and years and years. And now that I don't wake up at 6 in the morning, ever, trying to do that is very hard. So I can relate. I think everybody can relate to doing something that is hard because they don't currently do it.
It's a really good analogy. I think that's a very relatable analogy.
Yep.
A very relatable analogy. Because if I look back on, like,
running is hard if you don't run.
Yeah.
Swimming is hard if you don't know how to swim. So to expect, because I bought a swim cap, all of a sudden I'm a swimmer. No, that's a good first step. Now you got to go through the trials and tribulations of learning how to swim. And then once you finally realize, okay, I know how to swim, now you can use that skill to actually learn how to benefit from swimming. Same thing with nutrition. I don't know nutrition. I don't know nutrition. Okay, I'm learning about nutrition. Okay, I understand it. Now I can take advantage of what I know, but I still have to implement it. Like, that's a lot of steps before you really are even seeing some, return on that investment.
How often do you think you should make those changes and create new habits? Should you constantly expose yourself to new things on a regular basis, or are there
I think
it depends on each person. I get that.
For your neurodevelopment, I think it's great to have those things on a semi-regular basis. Again, if we're talking about, there's books on it and stuff, 21 days to make a habit, 3 times a week for 30 minutes for 3 weeks, building skills. Maybe I don't have enough data to answer that exactly, but I would say, if you're wanting to learn something new, like pickleball. I started doing pickleball in the last 6 months. I do it 2 times a week. Not live or die by 2 times a week, but I go every Thursday, and then initially I'll pick up an extra day here or there. I don't know how long that'll last. 6 months so far. I think at about the year mark, I feel like at the rate I'm going, I'm going to be really happy with my progress. Not to the point where I think that I'm a rock star player. I'll be better than most, I think. And it'll probably be time to try something new. But I'll have that skill developed enough in that year's time where I could probably go play with buddies any weekend and be one of the ones that are, better than most.
What motivates you to find these new things to do?
Normally it's socially influenced, to be honest. Golf has been something that I've always enjoyed. Well, since college. Since college, it's been something I've enjoyed. So over the last 10 years. And I go through phases depending on if I have a golf buddy or not. I don't want to go by myself to the range. I don't want to go play around for 4 hours in a cart by myself or matched up with some guy that I'll never meet again. I've done it. It's not nearly as enjoyable as when I got 3 other buddies. And so, I would say pickleball was a little socially influenced. I knew about it. COVID happened. Sunset Park built out 25 courts. I never stepped foot in one until I had 2 or 3 other friends at the gym that wanted to go check it out. And I said, yeah, sure. They were interested in it. They socially influenced me, some positive peer pressure. It was the competitive aspect of myself that made me create a more vested interest in it. And then now it's something I enjoy. I would say the same about just about all of it.
How'd you get into CrossFit?
CrossFit was something that I sought out for educational purposes, honestly. So at the time, I thought I was going to do college strength and conditioning. All I ever knew was football college strength and conditioning. I knew that there was a lot more out there. I had seen CrossFit on TV. It was kind of like the only other realm of fitness that I knew was accessible at a pretty entry level. And there was one right down the road. So I was done with my college football career. I wanted to learn a little bit more before I thought I could go help people or coach them. And I found Camp Rhino.
It's wild.
Yep.
So we're going to backtrack a little bit.
We're back to ACL surgery.
We skipped some, we went down a rabbit hole there, which is, I very much
That's
appreciate.
the way to do it.
That's the way to do it. So we finished with our ACL surgery. At what point does either PT influence you to find your own research, or does it do that at all? Does it try to kind of kick that inside your head? And then when did you start competing again?
Yeah, absolutely. So a year before I had surgery, about 6 months before I was like a shell of a human being. At that time, I had already enrolled in our high school's athletic training class. Loved it. That was like my first major interest in health and fitness, and not just playing sports. I thought that during that time, I became a little bit of not a guinea pig, but kind of a guinea pig in the class because I was going through my surgery or going through my recovery from surgery. So anytime we were talking about anatomy or potentially like the biomechanics, I tried to volunteer myself. Anytime there was like sports related information, I had a lot of background in sports, so I was pretty involved in that. And it's just something that tied my world together, right? The sports that I was doing, the recovery I was going through, and it's athletic training. It's rehab and prehab. It's everything you can do for an athlete and be the first point of contact. And honestly, maybe my experience of the remedial physical therapy had a brighter light onto athletic training. By that, I mean, when you go down, you're laying on the ground, torn ACL, not crying yet, but not knowing what's going on. You open your eyes, it's 2 or 3 athletic trainers that are there on the field. Now they can only do a prognosis or whatever, not a official diagnosis, but they know your ACL's torn.
They know how to test for it.
Yeah.
Anterior drawer test.
Yeah. They do a little, they're like, oh, I think it's a torn ACL. But they can only say, I think. They know. They know how to take care of you. They're the ones that are taking care of you. And honestly, a lot of times when you go to the doctor and they give you those exercises, you go back to an athletic trainer and they, or a personal trainer or someone in that, that realm, and they're the ones coaching you through those exercises. So they're kind of holding your hand through the whole process. So they try and do the prehab on you. They're the ones on the field and they're the ones that actually get you back to play. That sounds way better than the guy in the office that was sitting behind a counter sipping his coffee and then has me do step downs. So yeah, I went through that process, did the athletic training class, did the advanced athletic training class, continued to play sports, but understood that you really couldn't do both. Right? You could take the class, but you couldn't volunteer to be the athletic trainer during the football games when you're playing the football game.
Fair.
So even though I still had that interest, I put sports first, and I didn't really know what was going to come of either. Then, towards the end of the senior year, one of my coaches sat me down. He goes, so what's your plan? What's your plan? What are you going to do for college? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to go to college. He goes, okay, well, where are you going to go? Where are you going to play? I'm like, play? I don't know. He goes, well, you know you're good enough to play, right? I guess I know now. And so honestly, I kind of gave him a list of some schools that I was interested in. He's like, oh, yep, that one, Boise State. I know a coach there. He'll be here next week. Next week rolled around. He watched me play a little bit. He said, yep, we'll take you. I said, oh, cool. That was
quick.
That was easy. And so from then on, I was, all right, Boise State it is. Let's go. Go Broncos. So that was the only school I ever applied to. I got in, showed up during the summer, signed up for my gen ed courses. I knew I couldn't do athletic training, but I learned about kinesiology. And so I said, all right, that sounds as close to athletic training as I could possibly be. So that's what I signed up for. Again, not really knowing what was to come of that at the time. It sounded like you do kines and then you go to PT school. So I said, all right.
Yeah.
On day one, they said, who's going to go to, who's whatever major, right?
Yeah.
75% of the people, I'm a kines major. They say, okay, keep your hand up if you want to go to PT school. Everybody kept their hand up. They say, okay, well, now look around. They say, this is your competition. They say, you start sharing answers with people. These are the people that are going to take your spot in 4 years.
That's fucking savage, but a beautiful way to put it.
And if we're being honest, because you're all adults now, you're all fresh 18-year-olds who have wide eyes to the world, only 10% of you are even going to make it. You start to see like, oh, okay.
It's fucking real.
Like who's still got their hand up high and proud?
Yeah.
And who's like, uh-oh, looking around. And to be honest, I was one of those people that was kind of looking around like, oh, all right, well, is there a backup plan? I'm not really sure. I'm 18. I don't care.
Yeah.
We got a game next week.
So that was the conversation, and then you were over it at that point. You were just like, we'll figure it out.
I wouldn't say those two things are the same. I wouldn't say over it and figure it out are the same. I was a athlete student. I think most people are athlete students. Yeah. Even though they call you a student athlete. Yeah. You do have to meet the prerequisites of being a student if you want to be an athlete. But I think if you play sports in college, your focus is on athletics and you also go to school.
Yeah.
That's just, we're just being honest.
Yeah. So then were you enjoying your time on a collegiate football team? How was that experience?
Yeah. One could say I might have enjoyed it a little too much.
Yeah.
I remember going to Albertsons, and I mean, I'm 6'1", at the time, like 220, 230. Like I'm not a small kid, but I'm also walking around with like 3 6'4" black dudes. You know, my squad, my teammates, my people that I lived in the dorms with.
Yeah.
Now, in a lot of places of the world, that's no big deal. But in Boise, Idaho, it's a little different. They know you're somebody, basically. They know you're on the sports team. And I remember being at Albertsons and some guy, he's wearing his Boise State hat and his gear, and he's a super fan. And he's like, "Oh, are you guys, the new kids?" He goes, "What are your numbers?" And he literally, everybody, he goes, "Oh, number this? You're da-da-da. Oh, number 50. Oh, you're da-da-da." Like he knew everybody's names because he knew the roster.
That level of obsession is just
and
odd.
I thought that was crazy. And then you go to all these parties. You know Kellen Moore? Well, yeah, he's my locker guy. He sits right next to me every day. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you get desensitized to it.
He's just a guy. He is just a guy.
Yeah, if you've ever been around, a high-level athlete or someone who's national champion or whoever, but they're your training buddy. I mean, you see it at the gym. You know Alex Gazan? Yeah, that's one of my friends. I mean, she's one of the top in the sport in the world, and people know her because of that and love her, for other reasons as well, but admire her because of the work she's put in that realm. And I'm like, yeah, it's just Alex. Like, that's my buddy.
I didn't realize she was that good. Obviously, I know she's...
Yeah. So she got 4th at the CrossFit Games last year.
God damn.
4th? Yeah, I think so. No, I mean, she's the truth.
Yeah.
But I've known her for a handful of years. I remember when she moved out here and was just starting to coach. She was really good at fitness. You kind of see some people occasionally, you say, wow, she's special, or he's got a little extra gear in him. And so she was one of those people. And yeah, fast forward a few years later, I'm desensitized to her fame or glory. Obviously, I understand it because I'm immersed in that world. But same thing in the college football realm. I knew these guys are all going to go sign college or pro contracts next year, but it's just Doug. You know what I mean?
I understand.
And yeah, so
I feel like that's a good place to be. Like, just to be.
Yeah. Well, and it humbles you for sure, because you might think you're hot shit because you were the league leader in rushing yards in some BFE school, but now you're playing with the big boys. And I didn't think I was anything special. I mean, like I told you, I didn't even know I was going to go play college football. I wasn't getting letters in the mail. I wasn't some 5-star recruit, but I was good enough where someone saw me and the opportunity was there and it worked out. I had a good time my freshman year. I made it through freshman year. I didn't make it much longer than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a reason I'm in Las Vegas and not Boise, Idaho. We knew that you get class checked. We knew that you get drug tested. We knew that they do all kinds of, checkups on you. It's all to make sure that you got your act together.
Yeah.
That way you don't let the fame or the freedom of being a fresh 18-year-old out in the world get the best of you. Or the upperclassmen as well. You start to get your license. You legally can drink, right? You're a 21-year-old now, so can't be making those stupid 21-year-old mistakes if you're also trying to play college football. Most of them are graduating about that time anyway, so it's not too much of an issue. But
most of them aren't drinking at 21. I mean,
well, they are drinking at 21, but they've been drinking since they were 18.
Exactly. Yeah. Or even earlier.
Yeah, or even earlier. In my case, earlier. I mean, high school, I partied way more in high school than I have in any other phase of my life. But it was also very close to college. So if you do I'm on my way down from partying, sure, but I started up pretty high. So the urge to still have fun and, kind of have a altered mindset was still there. And so even though we knew we got drug tested and drinking was potentially, it was on the table, but, you can breathalyze for drinking and you can still get in trouble that way. get a minor in consumption ticket. But this new stuff on the market, this synthetic K2 or spice is basically what it's referred to as. That was like super big at the time. It was just coming around.
No way, dude.
So we would literally go to 7-Eleven or whatever.
Yeah.
Just the gas station on the corner. We're 18. We can buy whatever. By whatever, I mean spice.
Yeah.
So we knew that was like the loophole at the time. So basically for all of freshman year, me and a bunch of other dudes, we all smoked spice. That was like our hangout, play some video games, roll up a spice blunt or hit a pipe or do whatever. And that was like our weed. That stuff is crazy.
I want to hear. I've never smoked spice, but I've been around so many people that have had such wild experiences.
I would say like most drugs, it's all mindset based.
Okay.
So I had experienced some other mindsets. So like if something altered my perspective or my vision or my feeling, that wasn't abnormal to me. I think most people that smoked spice and hadn't been, quote unquote, out of your mind like that, it freaked them out. So I've seen a bunch of people, they basically go like petrified. Is they smoke it, they're okay, and all of a sudden they just are like I wonder what's going on in their head, because they're kind of frozen, looking around, not moving a whole lot, not very responsive. To me, it's like their brain is just fried at the moment. I've seen some people go even a little bit farther, where they become extreme paranoia. So much so where I remember at this one party, this girl was in the staircase, just like hiding in her jacket. And I mean, it's her friends. It's her roommate is trying to go up and like comfort her. And she, don't let them touch me. Don't, like, freaking out. I've probably carried 4 or 5 different people from, one location to their bed or their couch or whatever, because they basically couldn't do it themselves from spice. Didn't stop us.
Of course not.
We just said, oh, she's tripping. He's tripping.
What is that? Did you ever trip like that?
Not like that. No.
Okay.
To me, it was very much like weed, but just a little bit different, I guess you could say.
Interesting. So have you had any psychedelics by that point?
Yeah.
Okay. So how similar to, like, how extreme on the scale? If I'm going to put like weed on probably like the bottom of the scale, and then like LSD or DMT on the upper end of the scale, and then shrooms, I guess, kind of in the middle, where inside that spectrum does
for me, I'd put
lie?
Shrooms and acid much closer because of the impulse control. I feel like the two of those have a much, I guess it depends on which way you look at it, a lower ability to control impulse. I would say shrooms even lower of a control. I think acid tends to be a lot more in your head. You see it, you feel it, you're kind of like, whoa, things are a little weird. Shrooms, I feel like it attacks the body a little bit more, and people are ping-ponging. All of a sudden they're running around, they're laying down, they're climbing things. Their impulse control is a little bit lower. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah.
I've been much more functional on acid than I have on shrooms. Let's just say it that way.
Really?
I think some of the sensations are kind of there, but I didn't feel like there was any effect on impulse control with spice. Felt like it definitely kind of had you a little bit removed, not quite the DMT effect of the outer body experience, but maybe just, set back a little bit farther.
Okay.
You're looking at things a little bit farther back.
Interesting.
From a worldly perspective. Didn't really make you think anything weird or see anything weird. But you got kind of the body high, a little bit of the, the head rush or euphoria.
People associate marijuana with medicine at times. because it forces them to think about or be more creative, or it's just what's reference, right?
Yeah. Everybody has their opinion.
Everyone's a little different, but I think it's a common stereotype. It's like, oh, you have a bunch of artists that will smoke weed and play guitar, and like that's how they come up with their new track or whatever, right?
I hear that.
They're all smoking weed inside of a studio, and then they're rapping, right? That's kind of like it helps to get the creative juices flowing.
Yeah.
Does K2 or does Spice have any sort of that realm at all?
No. If anything, it slows you down. I mean, to the point where you're thinking about thinking. It's harder to come up with what you were thinking you were going to say, or what you would have naturally said, right? My response to a question, is that what I was? You almost have to talk to yourself and convince yourself that your brain is working properly, because it almost has this little short circuit moment. Yeah.
How weird.
No, I felt dumber. Felt dumber.
And you're doing that regularly?
Regularly, every weekend.
That doesn't help with either school nor sport.
Yeah, probably not.
Outside of like the lung stuff, like the physiological stuff, I'm talking more about the mental stuff.
Yep.
Like I would imagine reading a play is a lot harder after a night smoking some K2 than it is not. But it just didn't. It was more about the fun than it was the game at that point.
Yeah, especially as a younger kid. Like I said, it's all new to you. The glamour is, you have that when you walk into the locker room and you're getting cool gear and all this stuff as well. But socially influenced. There are 100 guys on the team, but there's thousands of kids at the school. So if you're talking about a numbers game, you potentially get more influenced by the larger majority. So that lasted about a year. Summer comes around, all of a sudden, hey guys, we have this new drug test. What do you mean, new drug test? So like in that isolated moment, 5 of us, I think, had, 5 of us out of this group of freshmen all got caught, popped positive for, substance. For the most part, it's a 1-strike policy there. Not for everybody. If you're a little bit more valued, you potentially have some more wiggle room, even though they say it's a 1-strike policy for everybody. But I was basically on my way out the door with a couple other guys, and there were a couple that stuck around. So obviously not 1 strike for everybody, but it was time to leave there. So I went to Humboldt State.
To also play sport at this point.
To play football, yep. So it's like, okay, it's summertime. I need to find a new school in the next 2 months. I'm back on the recruiting train, did it all myself. Video clips, emails, contact. The rules are, very weird about who you can and can't talk to. It changes every year. Now there's NIL and all kinds of other things. I don't exactly remember, the specifics of it, but I was doing it all myself. I found a few different schools. I had a girlfriend at the time, so that was one of my big considerations. Was she didn't come with me to Idaho, but if I was going somewhere else, we would figure it out and go somewhere together. So we went to Humboldt State up in Humboldt, California, the weed smoking capital of the U.S.
Perfect.
It just so happened to be that way. It wasn't because I was like, I need to keep partying.
Yeah.
Where can I go? It just happened to be a funny coincidence that I got in trouble for smoking and then went to the smoking capital. So we moved there. We lived together. That lasted about 6 or so months. I was smoking weed occasionally. There at a D2 school, they're a little looser. So I didn't feel like I was sneaking around, though. I knew when I was at Boise State, I was doing something that was highly frowned upon and had consequences. At Humboldt State, everybody kind of smoked weed. Everybody just chilled. They didn't really do drug tests, whether it was their understanding of the environment or the finances that they didn't have at that level. But I knew that wasn't really where I wanted to be. And then after coming from such a prestigious school, then when my girlfriend at the time and I broke up, it made it a couple more months before I realized there's really nothing here for me. I'm not interested in doing the partying anymore. That's not been good for me the last couple of years. I've been trying to do it less and less. I'm trying to focus more on sports. The school is okay, but the environment is not really supportive. So it was time to pack up there. I went actually back home to the Bay Area. Was living, in the same, gated community that I grew up in. I did 6 months at a junior college. Oh, actually, no, I didn't even live with my grandparents. I rented a room with some people, but I was at their place a lot. It was close enough. Now that I think about it, I think, oh yeah, I didn't actually live with them, but
could have saved some money if you did.
Yeah. Definitely could have saved some money if I did. But I was working at the time. I was doing some construction, doing some mobile rock climb company. I was traveling to some state fairs, grinding at school. I had to do extra credits because now I'm behind because you can't transfer them all. Because I wanted to be out of there in one semester. So I played one semester there, and then I was back on the recruiting train again, doing it all myself again. These times, and I mention that because it's just not as easy these times around. It's not like some coach just showed up and said, poof, all right, you got a spot on the team. It's hard. 20, 30, 40, 50 emails, every school you might be interested in, every coach, you're doing the recruiting coordinator, the special teams coordinator, and potentially a third coach as well if you're just trying to get your name in there. And then UNLV basically popped up on my radar. I didn't know much about it. I said, all right, I can stay in my kines major. I can play football. It's kind of on the West Coast. That's, I'm a West Coast kid, so I don't want to go too far. And so then, boom, came to Vegas, drove a U-Haul out here with all my stuff, got in, a room, rented a room from someone. And, it was definitely another different experience. Not a college town. People are like, oh, you have a university? Is that Reno? Are you the Wolfpack? No. Not them. UNLV. Graduated. But through those 2 years, that's when my big push into, my career path kind of happened.
Hold on.
Yeah.
So what is the energy that Dakota's having during these setbacks? Like the first one, you're like, is it like a drop and you're like, oh fuck, what am I doing with my life? Or is it like oh well, fuck it, gotta do the next thing? Like you're more focused on like the next thing than you are like looking back on, holy shit, what did I just do?
When I sat in that room with Coach Peterson at the time, and he was explaining to me what was happening, I honestly was like, what? What do you mean? Like, huh? No. Like I kind of didn't have words because I didn't really understand the consequence. I knew what was happening, right? I told you previously that I knew there were consequences, but I didn't know the impact that it was going to have. Yeah. Until we're like trash bag cleaning out my locker. Nope, you don't get to keep this stuff. This is for players. We keep all this stuff.
Fuck.
Shitty old t-shirts and socks and shoes. Nope. This is UNLV gear. This is Boise State gear for Boise State players. I was like, the stuff I bled, sweat, and tears and threw up in, you're just going to
throw it away.
Throw it away, donate it, whatever. It's not for you.
Fuck. Oh, God. That makes me feel so rough inside.
And those those trains of thoughts did not happen in the moment. I was sad or bummed or maybe even pissed, angry that I couldn't keep the stuff that I thought I earned. Entitlement. The realization of that took years, though. Looking back towards the end of college and seeing bowl rings and championship rings, on all my old friends' hands, they're like, doing the double fisting thing. And I'm like, we won 3 games this year. Like, I won more games at Boise State in 1 year than I did in all my years at UNLV. So to see something like that, to see all the kids that I played with signing NFL contracts, only just made me more angry at myself, basically, or more upset about the situation, thinking like, wow, that could have been my career path. I could have had all those rings. I could have gone to the NFL. And not that I couldn't have gone to the NFL, the path I went to. It just, the percentage drastically decreases. The amount of people that they recruit out of a D2 school, or once you've gone to a junior college, just plummets. I think we had 8 kids drafted. It was one of the biggest, draft classes besides a couple of the Alabama ones from that Boise State year. So my mindset throughout the moment is just like, all right, new adventure. Okay, pick up, start fresh. I'm not afraid to put myself out there. Okay, we're in a new situation. Make the most of it. So in the moment, my mindset was pretty clear still. All right, new thing. That's not working out. New thing. And not like I got to escape this. It wasn't relocation therapy. It was just, all right, that's not working anymore. Time to move forward. I wasn't hoping, obviously I was hoping the grass was going to be greener every time I changed yards, but I wasn't assuming that. I know the greenest grass is blue. You know what I mean? Boise State, blue field. Yeah. But I'm also happy with my path and where it's taken me and how I'm here. So through my last couple years at UNLV, I would say I actually focused less on the sport of football, more on the training of football. So as a long snapper, you don't get much respect as a player. So I kind of tried to earn the respect in the weight room, I guess you could say. I was definitely interested in having improvements, getting stronger. I did a lot of lift with the strong guys and run with the faster guys. That was just kind of not necessarily the nature of my position, just kind of how it turned up. Yeah. I had a lot of linemen that I did my bench press and my squats and power cleans with, and then I'd try and run with the running backs. Not the DBs, the running backs. The DBs, that's a different breed. And I had a couple of friends outside of school or outside of football, but in school. Okay. And they like to work out. So we'd go hit the rec center. So I'd train in the morning. I'd do classes, practice, whatever. In the evening, we'd go to the rec center and we'd bodybuild or bro lift or whatever it was. Not too much high intensity stuff. They played basketball, so that was their intense or their cardio. But I pretty much led all the sessions. I was the stronger dude who had more experience because I was on the team. Excuse me. And so they're like, all right, what are we doing? So I was just getting immersed in the Bradley Martin, a bunch of different, old Arnold stuff, different bodybuilding splits, learning about different programs, GV, German volume training, different contrast stuff, lots of just burning the shit out of everybody's arms, right? We'll do a back and buys day, a chest and tries day. And then I started enjoying it. So I'd have notes on my phone and, I wanted to bring, come to the table with stuff. So instead of trying to figure it out on the fly, I say, all right, guys, this is what we're doing today. And I basically, led kind of our group on most occasions through additional lifting. So I was just all about it at the time. That helped with football. It was, I would imagine I was probably overtraining with what I know now, but at the time it worked. I was getting fed like a hog.
Fed, high testosterone.
Yep.
You're just
Yeah. And so then I was also coming to the end of my college education, trying to also think, okay, time to start figuring it out a little bit. You just signed up for whatever classes you had to. Now you're about to graduate. What's going to happen after that? So I started doing some personal training because that was just easy. It felt like that's what I was already doing with some friends. I talked to my strength coaches, and kind of in the same regard, with my high school coach. They're like, well, are you gonna coach? You seem like that's what you're interested in. And I was pretty excited. I was like, yeah, actually that's kind of what I want to do. I feel like I put myself in a position where, based on the education and experience, it seemed pretty natural. And there was opportunities to go and do the GA program, graduate assistant. That would be paid schooling, and you basically
get your master's degree. And
I wouldn't say that's true. You get your master's degree, you get the experience, you work with the team, but I mean more so your time, right? I wouldn't even call it volunteer. You just sacrifice or give up. You give up your whole being to get immersed into the strength and conditioning world, to kind of prove yourself and go through the
trials and tribulations.
Yeah, sure. You can call it trials and tribulations. I was thinking more of like hazing almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like you got to earn it, right?
Yeah.
You don't just get to be the strength coach because you are the strongest, smartest, this guy. Have you cleaned dumbbells for the last 2 years and mopped floors and stood there with a whistle at 5 a.m. making sure people touch the line? You have to go through those things as a strength coach.
Yeah.
And I wasn't against going through those things. I was kind of against moving again.
Where were you looking at going at to begin with?
I wasn't hard pressed on any schools. I knew that the coach I had at the time had a few connections, like Houston, Toledo, University of Ohio, not Ohio State. Like some decent schools. I was okay. I'll consider those. I don't really know what that means at the time, but again, I still have a semester left to school. So okay, well, when the time gets nearer, we'll maybe relink or link back up. But right at that time is when I found Camp Rhino. So I sought out Camp Rhino, sought out CrossFit. I said, okay, this is kind of what I'm looking at. I want to do the coaching thing. Got to learn a little bit more. I want to learn and have better experience or better education potentially, so that I can maybe be a little bit better if I'm going to move somewhere. But I found the CrossFit world. I started going 5 days a week. Had a leg up on most people because of all the fitness I had done. I was already doing muscle ups. I didn't even know what a muscle up was. I was already doing things like double unders or handstand push-ups, not with any technique or skill, just because that's what I was already doing in the gym. I think, like I said, I think Bradley Martin was one of the ones, Brad Castleberry, Dom Mazzetti, all those like super social media guys where they're also very fit, but I saw some of them doing some things like, oh, I'll try that. Cali Muscle, a lot of the bodybuilding guys, same thing. I said, oh, that looks like a good combo. Jay Cutler.
You're all over the place.
Whoever I could find at the time. And I would just try whatever they, looked like they were doing. And then that opened up outlets for research as well. But yeah, when CrossFit happened, I kind of like walled off all that stuff. I just learned about CrossFit. I got into Olympic weightlifting. I actually left. So I graduated. I left Las Vegas for a few months and I went to Cal Strength. So like that was probably one of the cooler things that I got to experience. I worked there for a few months with their NFL Combine crew. So I knew that I wasn't going to go to the NFL at that point, but train people in weightlifting and strength training to help them go to the NFL. That sounds pretty cool.
It's really neat.
Went there for a few months. It's like kind of like a paid internship, I guess you could say. Got some good experience. Came back. It was all about, okay, now I'm a weightlifting coach and a CrossFit coach. I'm I wasn't a strength, CSCS guy yet. Well, still not, but I hadn't thought about that at the time because I already knew that I changed my path to CrossFit.
Man, you're fucking sold on CrossFit at that point.
Oh yeah, got my L1. I was working at the front desk like, hi, welcome to Camp Rhino, when we had one. Trying to just get into every event, individual, team, anything, just because it was fun. I was, competitions? That's so cool. I actually went to my first competition 2 months into CrossFit, but I didn't know the culture at the time. So I didn't tell anyone I was signing up. I just found it online, went to some other gym across town. No one from my gym signed up besides me. No one at my gym besides me showed up because I didn't tell them I was going. So I went there. It was a beginner event. Like I'll preface that. So I didn't like just come in and I'm some games athlete. No, I was just a stronger kid. I came in, it was like a rowing and bench press workout. First place. Went to my car, took a nap, had some Chipotle, whatever, went back inside a couple hours later. It was like a thruster or something, pull up, jump rope workout. First place, went back to my car, took a nap. Like this is what I thought a competition was like at the time. Yeah. So I won that one. I came back. I told my people, I'm like, hey, I won this thing. They're like, why didn't you tell us you were going? Like we go to these competitions. So then when I experienced it, a couple months later, and we got 20 people competing, tents, all that, it's a big experience. I said, oh, dang, I kind of missed out on that. But it was just another thing that I loved about CrossFit was the community. And yeah, so I was still interested in learning as much as I could, but CrossFit specific or CrossFit backbone. So it's weightlifting, but weightlifting so I can get my CrossFit better. It's learning about cardio or machines because my cardio sucks, but so that my CrossFit can get better. Then COVID happened. At this time, I had been full steam personal training and CrossFit coaching. I kind of skipped over the 3 years that I worked in nightclubs and pool parties.
I saw you did that. Yeah.
But it just wasn't that, it didn't really have much effect on me other than I was having fun.
Were you back to freshman Dakota?
Not quite. I was 21, so I was legally drinking.
There you go. That's the difference.
No, I mean, I was there as a second source of income. I only had a handful of clients at the time, so I'd train them during the week. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, day, night.
Rough.
But I'm 22, 23, supplementing with lots of caffeine and napping when I can. And it was cool for a few years. I made some friends, went to a lot of free pool parties or cabanas and stuff.
I've heard it's good money.
It's good money, yeah, if you're in the right positions. I definitely wasn't in the best position for money, but I spent a lot of time in a lot of cabanas while working as well, so tips are pretty good. Not like a cocktail waitress tip. Those girls make bank.
I have one of my
couple of clients that are girls.
One
cocktails.
Of my clients, she's a dancer for the Desert Dogs. And she used to dance for the Chargers. So she was in the NFL, then moved over to...
Which that profession makes no money, by the way.
Dude, they're fucking none. I learned about it on the podcast and I was like, what the fuck?
You make like $100 a game? What?
It's insane. So... Now she's a personal trainer at Lifetime, and then now she's moved over. It's Lauren Strong. Okay. She moved over to Fountain Blue, or I guess she's doing both, but she's going to be doing cocktail waitress there.
Dude, Fountain those Blue. Girls, most of them don't even live here. They might live in California or Texas or Arizona or something. They come out for like 6 months. They make $100,000 minimum. Some of them are making 2, 3, 4, 500 grand. Plus, some potentially well-connected friends, let's just say, that they make. Sugar daddies, whatever. The OnlyFans craze is huge now, so I just think it's natural that a lot of them also have that, even though it's not assumed.
Yeah.
They can make some serious bank because they're hot. That's literally all it is.
Yep.
And honestly, even if they weren't hot, the amount of money that they charge at those pool parties and the commission or tax and tip gratuity that they get,
it would still be fine.
They could rock in sweatpants every day and still make $100,000.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah. That was cool while it lasted. But honestly, being done with that was probably even better, right? So that happened during COVID, unfortunately. So it's not like I was working more. I was actually working less. But when COVID started to die down, I knew I wasn't going to go back there. So I said, okay, I have more bandwidth, more time to get into more training. By that, I mean more coaching, right? So I picked up a little bit more classes, some more clients. I had traveled and learned kind of like some personal training for personal trainers, basically. Took a couple of courses, learned a little bit more on sales in the back end. You need to do your own research and do your own programs to know what to do with clients, but how do you get clients? How do you sell clients? How do you create emotional connections with them and get them to resell or rebuy? That's a huge part of the profession that not everybody is good at and not everybody has like formal training on.
Right, you spend so much time getting good at, or I think the focus, like if I'm a good trainer, then I can get clients, and it's like dive into the books, get all these certifications, but then you can't communicate with a client, or you don't know. It feels uncomfortable to ask for the sale, and then like also realizing, oh shit, like this is actually really hard to make money in.
Yeah,
like there's a lot.
You're
of
like,
work.
I'll do the math. Okay, I got 10 clients, all paying this. They show, it's like, oh, cool. I just made $100,000 this year. Like, okay, now I just need to find 10 clients that are willing to pay that. Where are you?
And then right, you have to do the marketing, and then you have to bring them in, and then be able to communicate effectively what you're going to contribute to their life. Mm-hmm. And then it could be a short term. It could be a long-term client. If it's a short-term client, then you have to go find another client. Like it's a grind.
It is.
It's a real grind.
It's definitely a grind. I've had a few clients that I've had long-term, and through the training that I had done, you learn a little bit more about trying to create the long-term commitment. It really is good for everybody, right? They're getting a better price point. They have a better plan for success, right? They can go through cycles, or they just have more time to actually see improvement. And then you have that lifeblood of money or income for a lot longer. You have to whore yourself out a little less, right? But yeah, then there's the stress of like, oh, there's only have a handful of sessions left. You have to bring it up, and you have to try and, make sure that you're showing the value, basically. And that's kind of all the back end is relaying value, right? You kind of said what you can bring to their life, what the value is of what they're paying for. I'm not just like a clipboard and a timer. Like I go to those places, EOS and LVAC, and when I'm warming up or when I'm doing my sets or in between, I love observing, because I just think of the amount of money these people are paying these other people. It's tough.
They don't know better, but I think that
I don't think either of them know better.
Correct.
I don't think the client knows better, and I don't think the person who's counting to 10 out loud without any instruction knows better.
Correct.
Through some more higher level CrossFit training, right? The level 2 is all about coaching coaches. Level 1 is learning what CrossFit is, the mindset, the methodology, the foundational movements. And then boom, you just need experience as a CrossFit coach. If you're good with people, you're a good coach. You'll learn the other stuff as it comes, right? You'll get more tools to your toolbox about warm-ups and games and this and that as the years go on. If you can't talk to people, then you're probably not going to be a good group coach or a good personal coach. But yeah, like feedback. Things are doing well, things are doing bad. Counting is cool, but like I can count on my hand while I'm telling you, hey, your knees are going out a little bit. Hey, let's get your head up. Like I just counted to 15 and I gave you 2 different things to help your squat.
Yeah.
Instead of just only counting out loud.
I love finger counting. It's because I'm going to like talk to
you know how to count in sign language on your fingers?
I do not.
All right. So this will be educational in more ways than one.
Let's do it.
I do this when I have my clients. It is, to me, I took sign language in school, so it's natural for me, but it's 1. It's got to face in towards you.
Towards me.
Yep, there's a purpose for it, because this is 1, this is the letter D.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, And then technically it turns out, but if you're kind of down by the side, it doesn't matter too much. You have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
Now, if you have to go past 10,
That's a lot of reps.
Yeah, that's cardio at that point. Just count to, if you have 13,
10,
count
10.
to 10 and then count 1, 2, 3.
There you go.
There is a way to count to 11, 12, 13, 14, but it just becomes a little bit more to learn.
11?
Yeah, so
12.
11, 12, 13 is more like come here.
13.
14, 15. Shit, if you have to count more than 15, you're doing something wrong. That's a bad program.
Why'd you take sign language in school?
Because I didn't want to learn Spanish.
Fair.
Straight up. You had, I think in my high school, you had French, Spanish, maybe German, and sign language.
Damn, it's a lot.
Yeah. I had it. Like I said, I came from a pretty affluent area, 2,700 kids in my high school, lots of options.
Wow.
Yeah, so sign language was it. Took it every year in high school, took it a few years in college.
Do you still know it? Are you
A decent amount. Yeah.
Could you communicate with somebody?
I could definitely communicate with someone. The problem is when you tell someone that you're like, oh, I know sign, they think you're fluent and they rattle it off and it's like, whoa, slow down. Like a lot of the signs too, it's finger spelling. So it's your ABCs when I have to communicate with someone because they'll do some sign and I was like, what's that? What's that sign? Can you finger spell it? And then they'll have to spell it out. And that's a little bit slower, but even, when you're learning it or when you're trying to become fluent or whatever, anything you see, you're finger spelling just so that you can get the muscle memory down. That's like one of the big skills, the dexterity, the speed.
It is very fast. Like if you watch comedy shows, sometimes you'll see somebody off to the side doing signing, and it's fucking quick, dude.
Yep, it is, and especially those interpreters, they are money.
And then they're expressing not just the words, they're expressing the emotion and like the severity.
And that's the big part about sign language is it's almost just as much facial expression as it is the actual sign. We have inflection in our voice. So when I say yes or yes, right? Like we might naturally do some kind of physical display, but there's a specific display that you need to do when you're questioning or negating or adding inflection to sign language. It's pretty interesting.
Like I would imagine like slow down. You did this for slow down or slow down.
Yep.
So I would imagine like slow down is like whoa, like slow
really
down.
slow down. No. You just exaggerate. Slow, like then they know. Okay, really slow. Okay. But there's certain things, that might get you in trouble. So one time down is hungry. You're like, oh, I'm really hungry. You don't go like this. That means you're horny.
Those differences matter. I'm really hungry.
Whoa, all right. This guy hungry for what?
That's good.
So that's how you count to 10 for sign language.
I probably still use my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 method. To be fair. Yeah.
That's
the more you know though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I see someone who's kind of like that, either they're German or they're
is that how Germans count?
Yeah, they count 3 versus Americans are 3.
Yeah. Yeah, the only reason, or people do this. Wait, what do you do?
I do this.
3? Oh, 3. I was like, there's 3 ways to do 3.
3.
You do this one, this one.
I don't like this one.
Or this one.
I do this one. I don't like this one either.
I don't, this, but you do that one and you don't even like it?
No, I don't like it.
Why not this one then? Oh, because you have to do a switch?
I guess 1, 2.
To me, that's like a baseball person.
Because
if you do baseball, you would do that one, I feel
really?
like. Yeah, because like pitchers and catchers, they'll shake off pitches like that. But this is F in sign language and this is W. So that's why they go this way. So it's not confusing.
That makes sense.
Yeah, just the more you know.
Yeah, it's good. I like fun facts like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't. Yeah, it's because I don't like to switch.
Okay.
That's really about it.
Oh, yeah, that's...
But it's hard to get that third finger out there. It's kind of terrible. But I don't know. I'd rather do that than switch.
Yeah. So we pretty much came to fruition here.
Yeah, kind of.
A lot of CrossFit, a lot of personal training. I would say I'm 50-50 in terms of like maybe not exactly where my finances are. Personal training is more profitable than group coaching, but in terms of my day-to-day, what I spend in terms of hours, maybe a little bit more personal training and then supplemented with CrossFit coaching traditionally.
Go for it.
Yep. And then like the newest development would be Underdogs.
That was my next question.
So Camp Rhino has been there for almost a decade. There'll be 10 years this year. Then, I just hit 9 years, so I'm just a little bit behind. I almost started right when that building opened up.
That's crazy.
And they've been around even longer than that, but that building, a decade.
Wow.
Obviously, I left and came back for a small period there.
Yeah. How did the Underdogs?
Yeah, then the underdogs thing came around. So Alex Kazan, she did not start Underdogs by any means. She was not the first. It was Justin and Carrie. Carrie Pierce, second fittest. She got second at the CrossFit Games.
Okay.
She was looking, it sounds like, I'm almost sure on the story, right? She was looking for new coaching. Justin owned an affiliate, was interested in coaching some higher level athletes. They joined up. They relocated to Las Vegas as their hub. In addition to Carrie, when you got a name like hers, you can add in a couple other big names pretty easy. So there were some other athletes added in right away. So all of a sudden there was a crew. So with Justin kind of as the head coach of those athletes, Kiefer, who had been in Boston at the time, doing a little bit more of the online programming, and some big name athletes at this other gym. They rented the space and they were Underdogs. So just like Mayhem, just like Proven, just like any of those other programs, right? That's really what it is. It's a program or coaching system or mentoring system, whatever you want to call it, for the CrossFit athletes. Sometimes online, or in this case, in person. That started growing. Alex, being the local girl, the local hotshot girl, naturally was kind of pushed by a couple of our coaches. Say, hey, you need more than what we have to offer here. You're better than everyone at this gym. You should be around people that are going to challenge you more. She found Underdogs. It just kind of circled back in after that. She wasn't coaching with them. She was just athlete. Then someone else added in there. Then I was like, oh, well, shoot, if all the people I normally work out with are going over there, that sounds like a good place to go, elevate my training, and then potentially add in an outlet for more coaching. So when I approached Justin, I told him straight up, I'm interested in coming in. I want to work out with the crew. It's a great environment, but like, I'm also a full-time coach. I'm interested in basically being one of your coaches. And yeah, kind of just happened like that, I guess you could say. A few conversations later, a few training sessions later, I was in with the group. I was taking on a couple of online clients, a couple of in-person clients. Then all of a sudden the group started getting so big and there were so many Camp Rhino associations. We said, why don't you just come to our gym? We're outgrowing this gym. It's a cool spot. It was great while it lasted. They just don't have nearly as much space or goodies to offer. Camp Rhino has all of that: space, equipment, opportunity. And so that's what they did. And then, now it's been almost 2 years of that scenario where we've added in an additional online personal training or online CrossFit coaching. And I think that's pretty normal, unless you're just a savage personal trainer who's getting a huge influx of clients, or potentially because you're at a Lifetime Fitness, right, where it's a big revolving door of people, whether you have them long-term or not. People are always walking through the door. At a place like ours, not as much. We have to encourage them to walk in the door a little harder. But I think as a personal trainer, you become all these outlets: nutrition coach, personal trainer, online personal trainer, programmer, this, that, the other. It's all still in the same umbrella. But now you could say, I guess I have 3 sources of income now at that point. Personal training, CrossFit coaching, online coaching.
Okay. What makes up the bulk of that? Time or finances? Or
Can
both?
you reword that question?
Where are you making the most money out of those 3?
Yep.
And then where are you spending the most time in those 3?
Gotcha. Personal training, the most amount of money. To be fair, probably also the least amount of time outside of the sessions, right? So, if I have 3 or 4 sessions a day, that's 3 or 4 hours a day, right? That's a decent amount of time. But besides those 3 or 4 hours, to be fair, I'm not spending much time on those sessions. When I get a new client, we spend a couple hours talking, selling, whatever, expectations, possible outcomes. I have some different programs that I might tweak for them, but they need structure. So there's not necessarily a need to reinvent the wheel always. I'm sure, as you know, once you kind of have created some good foundational templates, I have a 6-week starter or a 12-week starter, or if they want a little bit more strength, I have some different upper body things I add in, and a lot of them have worked in the past and continue to work and might get tweaked on the spot, but there's not a whole lot of need to spend extra time outside of those sessions. Now, for the online people that I coach, I would say that's the most additional time. Right? Because I don't actually coach them. We have occasional phone calls or text messages. I would do some video reviews for them. So those potentially take, if I'm just watching one snatch session, 5 or 10 top set reps, I don't need to watch all of them. Show me the main ones. Yeah. I might scrub through that same video a few times, spend a few minutes on each video. All of a sudden, 30 minutes later, now I can give them some notes or some feedback. And then, since those clients are custom templates, you could say, there's more time building every cycle, right? I don't just have a general thing I shove to them. I look at where they are in terms of their strengths and weaknesses, their schedule, all those considerations, and then kind of build from there. And so building those programs definitely takes a lot more time. You get better as you go. And there are times where I can say, oh, well, they need to squat 2 days a week. Oh, I actually have a 2-day-a-week squat cycle that I did. I can use those numbers, but that's only one training block of 4 or 5 training blocks potentially in a day. And that's where, you kind of go back to, you can use a strength cycle or a velocity-based cycle in CrossFit, but that's only a small piece of the puzzle. So you will benefit from those things, but you also have to make sure you're benefiting from gymnastics progressions, cardio progressions, skill, accessory, rehab exercises so that you're not getting injured.
Are you pushing most people towards a more CrossFit style of training?
I would say CrossFit didn't invent the timer.
Fair.
Clocks and stopwatches have been used for a long time. Interval training has been going on for a long time.
Okay. So do you employ a lot of interval training?
So in that regard, it's like, yes, all of it's CrossFit, or no, none of it's CrossFit. Most of my clients that I do in person, especially, we do, a well-rounded warm-up, some prehab exercises, hit some small muscle groups. Most of them just need to get moving a little bit. Normally a few different strength supersets, depending on where they're at in their development. Normally not contrasting muscle groups, or what most people would understand as conflicting muscle groups. You're not going to do 2 shoulder exercises together. I do an upper body and a lower body. So a few different strength supersets, because most of them just need regular strength development. And then, towards the end of the session, kind of ramp it up more HIIT style. I do incorporate what CrossFit uses in terms of EMOMs or AMRAPs, doing 2 or 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, or, going through stations. But like I said, CrossFit didn't invent that. That's just what I also use every day in CrossFit.
I would say, I guess how I term a push towards CrossFit is including like progressions always towards a
Olympics and gymnastics,
like always including
definitely
all
not
of those things. Okay,
no.
yeah.
Even when we're talking about strength or power development, kettlebell swings, right? Jumping exercises. Honestly, I would say, much more towards the strength and conditioning realm than the CrossFit realm.
Okay.
And I have a kids program that I do as well. And even though I do some minor kipping stuff with the kids, or you could call it some gymnastics progressions, it would be like remedial, right? Not kipping handstand push-ups. I'm talking better plank positions, kind of that lockout position, maybe in a handstand, just for some strength development, and stability, but not for CrossFit purpose. No, very much more the CrossFit, the strength and conditioning fundamentals, learning the progressions of plyometrics. I think CrossFit is so far behind the wheel on some of those things as a base organization, right? Day one, basically, you could potentially go in day one and do box jumps. Some people are totally well equipped for that. Some people are totally not. Normally, the scale for someone who can't do a box jump is a shorter box jump.
Or a step up.
Right, but a step up, all of a sudden, you lose the integrity of jump mechanics. So if we're trying to integrate progression on plyometrics and you only ever do step ups, you will literally never progress in plyometrics.
It's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
They call it, program for the best, scale for the rest. The scaling keeps the integrity of some things. So you normally have to pick one or the other when it comes to scaling. Movement pattern / muscle groups, right? Or intensity.
So weight, time, AMRAP, whatever maybe, or muscle up versus a kip, or muscle up versus a pull up.
Yeah, if you can't do a muscle up, okay, what's below that? A
chest to bar.
A chest to bar. But is a chest to bar above that? I feel like a chest to bar, especially if someone's kipping, is much more focused on a bicep type pulling movement than what about the press out, right? You miss a press out, or you do something like a strict pull up and a push up. That's great because you get the push pull, but now you lose the intensity of how tough a bar muscle up is. Going back to step ups versus jumping, right? Stepping up loses the intensity that jumping onto something has, right? If you've ever gone through the progression from single unders to double unders, you totally understand. Single unders at some point don't become a challenge for most people. Double unders changes the game. To me, there's a couple of things in CrossFit that change the experience of workouts, or the intensity, is if you could relate them to, right? Once you go from single unders to double unders, once you go from like no gymnastics or a couple of gymnastics to larger sets, right? I'm not talking 2 or 3 toes to bar in a row. I'm talking 10 or 15 in a row. Once you kind of break that barrier, workouts become a lot more difficult because you can make them more difficult. Not because the movement's challenging. Obviously, the movement's easier, but you can push it harder.
Now you're doing sets of 20 and then some GHGs or some squats or whatever you're going to do.
So doing Fran, of squats,
21,
15, 9, of thrusters and pull-ups.
Okay.
Now, if you can only do a few pull-ups at a time, or kind of like a strict-ish pull-up, right? I can kind of do it and just give a little body bump, and you only do a few at a time, and that workout takes you 7 or 8 minutes, you lost a lot of intensity. If you can do 21 pull-ups in a row, and now all of a sudden that workout takes you 3 minutes, you're on the floor writhing in pain.
Yeah.
So one is great because it keeps the pull-up, right? You're still doing 45 pull-ups, but the intensity is gone. Right, so most CrossFit will push to keep the intensity, right? It's all stimulus based. That's why there's time domains, time caps, the EMOM thing, the interval thing, right? It's all to create a sensation or stimulus. So I would rather you do the movement that's going to create the stimulus, which sometimes is not the movement at all. So wall balls, I have one gal, she's currently not squatting below parallel. Wall balls are not a good movement for someone who's not squatting below parallel. Not only is it a below parallel movement, but it has, the explosive effect, right? You're jumping the ball up, but then you also have to absorb the energy of the ball coming down. So definitely not good for someone who is trying to baby their knee. You're like, oh, just do like box squats instead. Change the range of motion. Well, that's okay because, and you could even say, hold on to the ball, do a box thruster, right? So I'm holding the ball, I squat to the box, I push it overhead. It's like, wow, that looks a lot like a wall ball. You're just not jumping it. But again, you lose the intensity of it. So something like a slam ball or a ground to overhead movement where you're still utilizing kind of like a full body movement, the intensity can stay way up, the time domain can stay in the same time. And yeah, sure, it's not a wall ball, but to me, that's doing someone better service than just scaling because, ooh, this looks like a wall ball. Do you get what I mean?
I 100% get what you mean. I'm looking for ways to solve the problem, or I'm also thinking
gotcha.
like, what if?
Well,
because what if that person isn't prepared for that sort of intensity? Like you're looking to keep intensity consistent, but if my body is not prepared enough to execute these movements, then the stress that I'm going to place on it by maybe using a different movement would still keep me out of that expected time range or intensity because my body wasn't prepared for it, so I can't recover.
But you're talking about an intro level of someone. I'm talking about the masses, right? Or people who have gone through like an onboarding and maybe are in past their first month or so of CrossFit, right? I'm not talking about someone who's new or off the street trying to experience CrossFit. I'm talking about a CrossFitter. Right? Like I would say the population you're referring to is massive, but in terms of the people inside the gym is very small. The amount of new people in the gym that can't handle a 4 to 5 minute intensity workout is 1 out of 150 most of the time.
You think so?
I think
I don't
so.
know.
I think if you're seeing someone who can't handle that 4 to 5 minute workout, it's because they chose a weight or movement pattern that was too intense. So a 10-pound ground overhead, right? It doesn't have to be a 75-pound barbell snatch to be comparable to a wall ball. We can make the intensity of a wall ball less, right? So throwing a 20-pound ball overhead to a 10-foot target versus throwing a 10-foot ball to a 5-foot target,
I think maybe
is intense for that person. So it's scaling the intensity, not scaling. It's scaling how you get to the intensity, right?
Yes. I think I'm applying intensity as a physiological, I'm getting my heart rate up to this X number, but
right.
It kind of sounds like you're looking for either like tonnage or velocity based kind of perspective rather than just like I'm going to use a lighter ball to kind of create the same velocity that'll ultimately be less required, like they'll have less requirement physiologically.
Yep.
But for that person, it'll have the sensation of an RPE that you're trying to elicit.
Yeah, and if we're talking about changing the movement, there's more of a gray area. We could just talk about a barbell squat, right? If the workout calls for a 200-pound squat and you have a 500-pound squat, you're going to be able to handle that, right? But if you only have a 100-pound squat, yes, we're picking a percentage or an RPE, right? Whatever they're perceiving as difficult. So they might have no weight. They might just have their body, but the intensity is relative, right? It stays the same. So I think it was maybe more confusing because we're talking about like a slam ball versus a wall ball. If we just go back to keeping the movement the same, right? The easiest thing to change is the tonnage, right? The reps, sets, volume.
But you're not just saying to scale things there. The movements you're also trying to change as well.
Not always.
Okay.
Right? Most CrossFit movements, or if we talk about our 9 foundational movements, I think you're thinking, well, what do I do if I can't do a bar muscle up? Right? So again, you're already thinking maybe of the high-end movements that people can't always do. Do you know the 9 foundational movements?
Please.
Okay, so you have 3 pulling exercises. You have deadlift, sumo deadlift high pull, and med ball clean.
Interesting.
You have 3 pressing exercises, strict press, push jerk. You have 3 squatting exercises, air squat, front squat, overhead squat. Anything else, you're in that top part of the pyramid again.
I think I would like to see that written down,
Yeah.
but those are such odd selections for the foundational
And
movements
that's
of
basically
CrossFit.
what you learn in your level 1 for CrossFit is that. You learn those 9 movements, you learn how to cue them, coach them, look at them, progress through them. You don't learn about toes to bar or kipping or squat snatches. But if you put together a sumo deadlift high pull and an overhead squat, essentially you have the mechanics of a squat snatch for a beginner.
Okay.
So if we're going back to intensity, that conversation, and you think of those 9 movements, right? The biggest thing we're going to change for someone to match your intensity and my intensity is not the movement anymore. Almost everybody can handle those movements. It's the weight, reps, and time domain.
Okay. Weight, reps, time domain,
They talk about
and range of motion. Can I adapt range of motion? That's one of the ones that I learned in another like CrossFit certification.
Do you
that I took.
associate range of motion with intensity though, or ability?
I would say that there's an argument for both. And I would say that like a power clean, like a clean that's caught high versus a full clean, which is caught low, is not dependent on ability. It's dependent on intensity.
I don't like the example you chose because I would argue that a power clean that someone chooses to squat down is still a power clean in terms of that range of motion, right? In the intensity to get the bar at that height. So if I need to receive the bar above parallel, that's a power clean.
Yeah.
But if I receive the bar above parallel and then drop into a full squat, is that not still the same intensity that it took to get the bar at that height?
No, it's more intensity. Because now you're adding, it's
for the whole movement, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, because you added the squat.
Correct. But if I were to look at either a full clean or a power clean, the power clean has more stress, or the full clean has more stress and has, I think, therefore more intensity as well.
Sure, but wouldn't it be better to just have someone go with a lighter weight and go through the full range of motion if possible?
It depends on my goal for the movement. Am I learning to catch high and learning how to have a turnover?
We're not doing a Olympic weightlifting session. We're doing a CrossFit workout. Keep in mind.
So then if I'm doing a CrossFit workout, I think this is where my frustrations with the sport sometimes come in.
And I agree. Someone who has poor mechanics in a full clean or in a front rack position, right? The degradation of that movement is going to take away from the intensity of the workout. So for someone like that, yes, a power clean would make more sense because they could still get the intensity.
And it's still going to be light enough weight.
Yep.
And they're going to learn how to do the movement correctly.
Yeah. But again, now we're talking about ability, not intensity, I think. It's because they're not able to do a good front squat that we wouldn't have them do that, not because it's too intense.
Sure. I still think that there's more nuance there than creating one or the other. It's either
there's always back
there's
and
always
forth.
nuance,
Yes.
correct.
And some days I will coach someone through, hey, last time, or let's start with just the power clean. It'll still be intense for you. We'll keep the weight, moderate, but we'll just catch above parallel. And then next time maybe, hey, remember last time we went a little bit heavier and we caught above parallel? Let's go a little bit lighter, but focus on the full range of motion, right? And do the full clean. So you could have that bounce back and forth where, yes, now I'm changing the weight relative to the movement, right?
Okay.
Are we coming to a middle ground there?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I think I'm just trying to get a good understanding. I think sometimes programming inside of the CrossFit space is so is generalized to some degree because it's hitting a large population of individuals, and so I get that, and so the outlook I think is a little bit different versus I think my preference or my focus is usually like each individual athlete, so and each individual movement over a long period of time. So I want you, yes, in a workout long term, I want you to be able to do a full clean or a thruster. So I need you to have you all the way down and all the way up.
Agreed.
But if I have a lack of stability or a lack of maybe hip mobility or strength, I can't get to the
Sounds like you're talking about a lot of abilities.
Sure, but okay, fine.
Which was my original stance. It's more ability based or considered based on abilities.
I still think that there's some emphasis of intensity, and I think like intensity can be is strength. And so yes, I can do the movement just fine.
Intensity you'll learn through CrossFit is controlled more so by rest.
But that's not what it is
intensity
in like in books.
Right, I understand. Stress. I think you might be, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think in this moment you're associating the stress of the movement with how intense it is.
I think that's what physiology would say.
That's not what CrossFit says, always. That's not what I've learned through CrossFit. Intensity is increased by decreasing the amount of rest.
I think that is a form of intensity, but I think that ultimately that increases stress. If I have less rest, then I have more stress.
Okay, I would use, can I use myself as an example?
Yes, please.
We were doing pistol squats the other day.
Okay.
Single leg squat. My ability to do pistol squats is very low.
Okay.
So as I was doing the movement, more than just the intended stimulus of, my legs, right? A single squat movement ideally doesn't involve a whole lot more than just my leg, like a regular squat would. But it was using so much of my hip flexor and my upper thoracic and my even, some of the smaller foot muscles to get into that position. So the stress of the movement was much higher. So my perceived intensity of that workout was so high. But in reality, someone else doing that same movement that has a better ability doesn't find that stress or intensity. So they would have to do more or more back to back. Does that make sense? That's I don't associate stress of the difficulty of movement in my conversation for intensity.
Okay. I can see your language.
Yeah.
And I can meet you where you're at.
And I as long as you're cool to meet me where I'm at, then I'm happy because I do have both kind of ends of the spectrum in terms of the strength and conditioning mindset and the CrossFit mindset.
Why does CrossFit choose to change the verbiage of so much?
I don't want to make a hard claim on what CrossFit does or doesn't do.
Fair.
That's my understanding or learning through my CrossFit experience.
From an outside perspective, from someone that's just like new to the sport, it just seems like even a power clean is called something different in the sport of weightlifting than it is in CrossFit.
Yeah.
Like
a clean is a clean, but a clean is always to a full squat.
Correct.
Except in CrossFit.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is, and so I think I look at individual sports and say, okay, back squatting with a low bar back squat is very powerlifting dominant. Cleans in that sport. And so like learning like the culture and like the beauty of that individual sport and then taking it and then applying it to CrossFit and then like, okay, now I'm going to bring kettlebells, I'm going to bring gymnastics, but I'm keeping all of their same language and then just applying it to my sport keeps, I don't know, pays some homage to all these other ideas.
That's a big talk in CrossFit. Why are they not just doing an Olympic total, right? If you're doing these events or these competitions, right, and you want to test their ability in the snatch, of course there's snatching under fatigue in a certain amount of time for X amount of reps, right? But when they do just a pure max test rep, why not use the sport that is done all of the trials and tribulations, right? Olympic weightlifting has been around for a long, long time. The structure of Olympic weightlifting, as far as I understand, hasn't changed a whole lot when you go to a competition. You get your 3 attempts. Sure, you have like an opener and you have to go and do the cards and figure out if you want to, push back or increase your second and third attempt, but you have a declared first attempt, time, a declared second attempt, time, third attempt. The structure's the same, the format's the same. The judging in terms of lights and stuff might be a secondary conversation, but like that's the format they use. Yeah. Why not just adopt their format? You want to adopt the movement, right? You want to test certain things in addition to that, by all means. But why be so close to what they're already doing and then not want to do it? That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, and I feel like you have an answer, and I'm gonna.
No, there's no answer to it.
Okay, there's no answer.
No, that's part of the beauty or frustration with CrossFit is it could be anything.
But it's not really. It's still weightlifting, powerlifting, CrossFit, gymnastics, just bundled in a specific way that's difficult. It's doing it under, like you're still snatching.
Yeah.
Under fatigue, yeah. And
but
that,
why,
that is a challenge in
what
itself.
you're saying is, why change some of the verbiage or allow some wiggle room in some of these things?
Why change? I think adding the wiggle room.
You like the wiggle room?
I think
you don't like the verbiage, but you like the wiggle room?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think that the wiggle room should be allowed. Like, okay, you're not going to have 3 attempts straight out. Cool. I've seen it where they have like lines of like weights or something, and I don't really know, like I haven't really.
You just go from one to the next.
You go one to the next, and like increasing in weight. It's not 3 attempts, but like that seems fucking cool. Like that's wiggle room, and that seems like it's visually like attractive. So you have a bunch of people that are tuning in, that are watching, that are like, oh, that's fucking dope.
Yeah.
And then it's relatable and it's intense.
So now you're getting to the spectator side of the sport.
Correct.
Where
and that's
now
cool.
It's not always about just finding, what is, but what looks good.
Correct. And so that I think is where wiggle room is allowed.
Yeah.
The verbiage is, I think, what unfortunately CrossFit gets a really bad rap. And I think part of it is people are going to poke at any little thing, and I get that. And that probably helps the sport of CrossFit grow in general because it gets a lot of flack. But having a similar verbiage would I would imagine make it easier from people going from outside sports into the sport to get a better understanding or to keep it more similar, or for a weightlifter to look in and say, oh shit, like they're doing a clean or they're doing a whatever, like, and like the verbiage is consistent.
I think the last thing I can say about my understanding of where we're talking is, if I'm talking to a new person, I say, okay, here's our workout. Right? We're doing squats, or let's just say it's power snatches, right? Dumbbell snatches.
Okay.
I think we can understand a dumbbell snatch and agree that it's just ground overhead, a little bit more basic than a power snatch, which is not really a snatch. Hey, new person, here's a dumbbell snatch. We're going to go from ground to overhead. We're going to do 5 reps of 5 on each arm.
Okay.
We're not in a Metcon. We're just kind of practicing a movement by itself. It has a purpose or a stimulus or whatever that is. If we want to make it more intense, we can change a numerical value. Add weight, add reps, take rest away. I think that's pretty easy for someone to understand. Then, hey, you're going to do this movement. It might feel harder for you than it feels for her. So we're just going to arbitrarily change something to make it feel the same. It's a little harder to grasp that. Just like an RPE is much harder to grasp than percentage based.
Do you think I'm focusing too much on the nuance?
I think so, yeah. I mean, you already agreed that you potentially associate some of the stress of the movement to some of the intensity, right?
Okay.
The stress of the difficulty of movement, right? In something like a pistol squat makes it more intense, says you. But numerically, there's no hard data on how much more intense that is. But if I add 5 pounds to that dumbbell snatch, I just added an X amount of total weight moved. That's going to make it a more intense session. Or if instead of 45 seconds of rest, I made it 30 seconds of rest, there's a number that I can equate to how much more intense it just got.
I think the number that I like to look at is like, I think an easy one that's very, even if we just use a 220 minus the age, is heart rate.
Yeah.
It's a super simple one that it's like, okay, like you are feeling stressed to this extent. And so if we're creating enough stimulus, it's going to achieve a percentage of either 1 rep max, or because really we're not focusing on 1 rep max. I think VO2 max has a lot more influence inside. And I understand that it's a very rudimentary
correlation.
Tool, but
yeah.
It's in the moment. What else do you have? Like in the gym, given most gyms.
Okay, let me put one more out for you, and then I think we should move on past that.
All right.
10 pistol squats for myself.
Okay.
Versus 10 pistol squats for Skylar.
Who I don't know.
Alex Kazan.
Okay.
She does them. Her heart rate barely spikes because it's just a body weight squat. I do them, I'm 5 in, and my heart rate spikes. But I've only done a few reps, so I haven't really got the benefit of developing that single leg strength. But my heart rate went up. So are we saying that's good enough?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I'll never get better at pistol squats then.
You can.
Not that way.
Yeah, you can.
No.
If you do it as if I do it as an individual lift, I'm not keeping it with anything else.
Yeah.
I have sets of 5, and I'm taking adequate rest, and my heart rate achieves X amount, or my stress level achieves X amount that she would have experienced as well.
But then if I take too much rest, I'm not going to get the muscle fatigue or the muscle development anymore.
Okay, so then do other individual movements like a single leg deadlift or a single leg
so
leg
now
press.
we used ability, is what I'm saying. We changed it based on ability, not based on stress anymore.
Okay.
But we already said there's back and forth. Sometimes do the pistol squats, sometimes do the single leg squats or the single leg step ups, right? Something that's going to develop strength. Sometimes go do mobility instead. I agree. That's why you're always getting pulled in these different directions in CrossFit, which makes it so beautiful and so frustrating.
I think that's what I'm trying to do is like bring it into a place where, and maybe it's just ultimately how much time do you ultimately have?
Yeah, for sure.
If it's only 2 hours a day to work out,
or if you only come in for a group class and you don't have time for anything else outside of that,
then you're gonna have to do the 10 shittier reps or the 5 great. Or you can't really do the 5 great reps. You have to. What's on the board is on the board. And I think where I look at it's like I want to be able to take an hour to do pistols. I want to take an hour to do snatching.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I want to take I want to break down all these individual things.
Mom and pop coming in the afternoon, It's what's the most bang for your buck.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? What's going to progress your fitness or help you develop the most in that short amount of time. And I definitely don't think doing the 5 only with the body feeling like it's going to explode the right answer. I think have them do potentially a totally different movement. Have them do lunges.
I agree with
split
that.
Squat. Yeah. So sometimes we do change the movement.
I think for the person coming, like mom or pop coming in the afternoon,
Yeah.
I think almost always changing the movement is the better call.
Yeah.
Because then ultimately you still have a long-term goal for them to maybe do a pistol squat, but they're just not at that point yet because they don't have that stability. They don't have that strength, right?
But I also caution that doesn't matter how long they do lunges, they're never going to get better at a pistol squat. I can agree with that. You have to have the coaching to say, okay, you're getting good at lunges. Here's the next step.
Correct.
Before we do pistols. Yeah.
You still need to work towards the pistol. I think you regress until you can progress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I think for the most part, we were all on the same page. Just, one slight change in verbiage, all of a sudden the conversation totally changes. That's just interpersonal dynamics.
I think that I'm still learning about the sport very much so. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm learning about you too, but like learning about the sport and then also the outlook, because you've been in it for a longer time, you have more experience. And so what is the conversations that are being had? And I'm sure at this point, there aren't a lot of people that don't know about CrossFit. I would say that probably most people do. But for me, even though I've been in sports for a while, still trying to get a better understanding of, okay, there's some different verbiages here. Why does that exist? And then how do we progress or regress?
Yeah. And if you're interested in learning about it and kind of getting immersed in it, then definitely you want to know those things. I love talking to new people about CrossFit though, because no, you're not wearing shoes, but I always look down at their shoes. I say, oh, it doesn't matter. Reebok, CrossFit, or Reebok, Nikes, Adidas, like they're all shoes. They all get you from point A to point B. They all have a purpose, but they also all have some slightly different materials, right? CrossFit, Boot Camp, P90X, Insanity, whatever, Orange Theory. They all kind of have these general goals or principles, but there's little things that are different. We want to increase fitness by multi-domains, right? Across a broad, or, there's the textbook explanation of CrossFit, which is, functional movement at high intensity across multiple time domains, right? What that means is really, we're trying to get you better at a bunch of different things. We're going to get you bigger, faster, stronger, or maybe not bigger, faster, stronger, able to move better, able to last longer, things like that. And how we do it might just look a little bit different than someone else's, but they're pretty much all trying to get you to do the same thing. Orange Theory, they want you to be able to, have a lower resting heart rate and sustain higher heart rate, via full body exercises. Just because they stay in one little small square and we run around a little bit more, or they use more kettlebells and we use more dumbbells, or maybe not, maybe it's vice versa. But it's all just a type of way to work out. It's not what you see always on TV. It's not always what you see on Instagram or hear about from your one friend who has some bad experience. I know there are a lot of people that have bad experiences at CrossFit. I know there are a lot of people that have bad experiences at P90X or
pickleball.
Yeah, pickleball, right?
It's a lot of injuries.
Yeah. Tons.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it couldn't still be great for a lot of people.
I think it's a lot of
times you have
sport.
you have to really get in there though. You can't come and watch. You can't come during an off time where you just see one person doing their workout. You can't just watch it on TV from your couch. You definitely have to get in a coached environment. Now, whether it's one-on-one or in a group, could be up for debate because maybe a brand new person shouldn't always just get tossed in the group. But I believe if the coach is quality enough that yes, a brand new person could get into any class, still get great treatment, great attention, great workout, this is CrossFit.
I think it very much so depends on the coach.
Oh yeah,
I think
100%. I'm in all these scenarios. I'm assuming we're talking about myself.
Fair.
Not all, and I mean, there's a lot of things that I would love to improve on as a coach. Would love to be more educated throughout the whole process. I am not opposed to any feedback or learning experiences, but I also think that I'm pretty solidified. The way I talk to people is my style, but I feel comfortable talking to people the way I talk to them, relaying information, correlating things, creating analogies or little almost one-word responses to like feedback or constructive criticism, coaching, however you want to call that.
It seems like the community of the sport is very, very strong, and I think that's very neat. But at the same time, I know when I first
walked
in,
it's also still so small. So small. The amount of people that really do it compared to some of these other things is minimal.
I think what it did, it brought a lot of eyes to health and fitness in general. Like, I think the impact that CrossFit has had on the industry is insurmountable.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, massively. But
yeah, what I'm saying is I think there's still so much more potential.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
small if you look at numbers. I mean, I know not everybody that signs up for the Open is all of the people that do CrossFit, but if you talk about the amount of people in the world that are, doing, or have gym memberships, but have never stepped foot inside of a CrossFit gym. Some of that is resources. Not everyone has 23 CrossFit gyms in their city like we do. I think here, yeah, absolutely. I think everybody out here kind of knows what, and in certain areas knows what CrossFit is, or knows a friend that does CrossFit, or has maybe even tried it out. But I think there's a lot of people that have done workouts in a 10-minute interval and would be like, oh yeah, I've done that before. I could do that at your gym with people and friends instead of by myself with my headphones on or my hat down in a corner or at home.
But there's also, I think I like putting my headphones on quite a bit sometimes.
Sure.
I do. I really like it.
I'm already planning Saturday. I'm going to go to EOS. I'm going to bro out. I'm going to hit some machines. I don't want to do CrossFit on that day.
Yeah.
I like doing other things.
But I also really miss being on the powerlifting team at A&M. And like getting out of that experience, and then it's so nice to be around other people.
Yeah, like-minded individuals with similar goals and interests. That's totally CrossFit.
And everyone's dying a little bit.
Yeah,
and like
you're all in it together.
Yeah,
100%.
I think I'm so awkward talking at the gym because it's like people are dying. Or like sometimes I don't want to talk to people. I'm just like, I want to work out. And so I'm always like, fuck, like, do I fist bump? Do I not? Like, what do I do here?
Yep. I
feel like the gym is a very awkward place.
Well, and being the new kid on the block, even though you've been there a little bit, you've definitely recently experienced what that is. And yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's just that paper thin wall where people think it's one thing and that's it. It's just paper, right? Just, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
The easiest thing I would say for someone maybe in your situation to be able to talk to more people is, hey, how's it going? How long have you been going to this gym? Oh, cool. I've only been here going a couple months. Like, what class do you go to? What things are you working on? I mean, it's the same conversation I might have to someone that walks through the door that I haven't seen before. Oh, hey, how long you been going here? Cool. Maybe what's your experience, or like, what are you working on right now? Like, what is the one thing that's challenging you, or that you've done recently maybe? And dude, people love talking about themselves, especially CrossFit and themselves. They'll open up all kinds of stuff. They'll tell you about, oh yeah, I just did my first pull up. All of a sudden, I'm going to do this competition. I'm going to do this. They enjoy talking about it with someone that has similar goals and interests.
I think I like doing it outside of the gym.
Talking to them outside the gym.
That's
well,
for
you
sure.
get to learn more than just the CrossFit side of them.
Well, that, but also like there's less stimulus going on in the background. That's more my jam. It's like I don't really like. There's so much happening that it's so much easier to be like, hey, can you sit down and just like, can we like just talk? I ask you the same shit that I would ask you at the gym probably, but I feel so much better being able to talk about it just like one-on-one.
That's just your type of personality. Then
100%.
I think that's what they actually refer to as most people think introverted and extroverted are just people and not people. Yeah. But how I heard someone describe it was more so like where you get your better energy from. Like people that thrive off an environment are the more extroverted people, but doesn't mean they don't like to be alone. It's people that when they need to kind of recharge, they need to, I need to just cut everything out for a little bit, spend a little bit time to myself, and now I feel better. I think those are really where my understanding of those definitions come into play a little bit more.
Yeah, I think there's just so much going on.
Yeah, but I love it. I'm way better, and this is cool. This is super engaging. If we were to just hang out, you and I, in a room watching TV or shooting the shit, honestly, I could fall asleep. Not because you're boring, just it's less engaging. Yeah. This, like, it's super purposeful. The conversation quality and topic is all up in my interest. But otherwise, I'd rather have 20, 30 people around, just even in the space, even if I'm not directly encountering them. I just would rather have more people there. But again, that's kind of where I get my energy from.
That's cool. Yeah. Which makes you a really good person for that environment, especially in the CrossFit community, which may kind of like why it's so gratifying. Like you said at the beginning, you're very like socially driven.
Two people in a class. I mean, I can give them great quality. Personal training, I mean, it's all about them, where they're at, their exact goals, their ability, their intensity, whatever. It's all for them. But I would rather have like 15 people in a class. Like I want to manage the chaos. I want the energy. It's much easier to create energy when there's 15 bodies instead of 2.
It's fair. It's kind of where you're at. Yeah. It's fun. It's I think it's like from an outside perspective, like walking around the gym, like being able to see that it's definitely you. You know, like especially like game night the other night.
Oh yeah.
Like that like
yeah, I mean, I'm all about it.
You're intense as fuck, dude. You're fucking in it.
But part of that is just you and what you might do in that experience. It's super intense compared to how you would normally like initiate or put yourself out there. To me, that's regular.
Fair. Good point.
Yeah, that's not crazy to me. I speak my mind. You guys are talking. Nope, I'm involved. You guys are talking. Nope, I'm getting in over here. You have a train of thought. Nope, my train of thought. And not that the attention has to be on me, but that's what I mean. Is like I'm more comfortable inserting myself in those. Game night's fun.
I think those qualities they tend to be very. From my perspective, like attractive. Like, man, dude, that guy's just out there fucking like part of the group. And like, that's so fucking cool. And then I'm over here like, I don't know that I can be part of the group, you know? And I feel like that I probably could if I like really like embodied that, like brought that same kind of energy, but I just feel so drained or so uncomfortable in that space.
Maybe not just as many people that feel turned off, but there's also a population of people that are turned off by like, oh, he's too much, or he's involved in all those people. No, I want a smaller circle, or that's too much energy for me, or the fact that I'm so maybe not even so open, but I'll play devil's advocate just because it's what's going on in my brain at the time, or it's entertainment. I might not even feel a certain way, but I'll, create stress in an environment that someone might not want.
I like to do that too.
Yeah.
I don't but more on a one-on-one.
Yeah.
Or I guess in a group of people that if I get to be able to do this with you, then I'm like, okay, like I have a good understanding of where Dakota's at. I think he has a good understanding of where I'm at. Now I can kind of like shoot the shit a little bit more and develop that relationship.
Yeah. I love going through like 15 or 20 minutes and be like, by the way, that's not what I think at all. That's just what I'm saying could happen. Kind of like the board game situation. Yeah. It's like, I actually wasn't even thinking that. I just know that that's a possibility.
It's fair. It's fun. So we're about to head out.
Yep.
A piece of advice that you would give to 16 to like 20-year-old.
We might have to go a little bit later than that because there's an easy piece of advice I'd give for 16-year-old me.
What's 16-year-old you and what's freshman-year-old you?
Yeah, 16-year-old me is it would be 16 and freshman is the same advice. Is hey, don't go smoking that spice. Realistically,
it's good.
Like fresh out of high school me. Like I almost want to say, don't be afraid to try harder in certain things. But then I look back and I'm like, no, there were certain things that I really like dove into and did try hard for. It's not like I was worried about being, a nerd or something like that. A lot of times I think people get associated with being a nerd because they try hard in school. I think probably be more like my interpersonal relationships, right? Like I connect with people very well and I can connect with a lot of people very well. I think harboring some of those longer valued friendships, especially after all the moving that I've done, probably could have done that a little bit better. And part of that is making me wonder how good some of those friendships were, right? So potentially even cutting out some of your circle, right? Finding a truer circle of friends in some of those scenarios. But that's all, retrospectively thinking about it. It's kind of hard to do as you're going through the years. I feel like sometimes you don't understand. I'm like talking myself in a circle because then I'm like, now you don't understand some of those friendships until you're like, oh, I miss that guy.
I think that they're like understanding your own personal values.
Yeah, I think.
And like, do these people align with that or do they not? And not,
there you go.
Not necessarily.
I think that's a little bit of a cleaner way of saying it. Maybe just being a little bit firmer or clearer on what my value system has been over the last handful of years and making sure that the people that I'm associating with have a better match of that.
And I think allowing there to be nuance within somebody's, I know that this is your sorry.
Because that was a great little, add-on that helped me just solidify that.
It's, I think oddly enough, giving enough people the allowance of like, yes, you meet my values and my expectations, but at the same time, also, I don't want the same personality. Like,
right. No, I don't want two of me. I can handle another one of me.
So like, yeah, so in some people might be like, man, Dakota's a lot, but you know what? He's a good guy. He treats people well. He likes animals and he likes to get food, whatever, right? Whatever that person values. It's like, that's a good dude. And that's somebody that I want in my group. And yeah, he's a lot, but that brings the color to ultimately your community of people that you have, which I think is like beautiful. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. I would say in addition to that, I'm still creating a plan, a trajectory with where I think I want to be going, like with my personal life and with my career path. And I think that if I would have talked to younger me, I would have said, hey, probably figure that out a little sooner. Nothing wrong with that. I think generationally, our generation is, marrying later, having kids later, going through more career changes than, previous. So I would say that it falls in line with that, but nothing wrong with having a little bit more of a plan.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Let's see. I'm not much of a social media guy, but I do have a little Instagram. I would say if you want to come find me out in person, Las Vegas is the spot. I'm a personal trainer and CrossFit coach over at Camp Rhino. If you're interested in doing any online or remote work, that would be just hit me up. Like my XYZ phone number or XYZ email account. I don't know if we're like saying that. I assume that's.
Oh, that's up to you. I mean, if whatever you want people to know.
Yeah, no. I mean, if people are interested in, any local training, obviously come into the gym, come try CrossFit, see what it's like. If you want to just experience that, if you want personal training or personal programming, obviously I or someone else could provide that. If you're like a CrossFitter out there who's trying to develop your skills a little bit more, and might not have an outlet in your area, obviously I do online personal programming as well. If you just want a buddy to hang out with, I play pickleball on Thursday nights and hit the driving range or go on some hikes with the doggy on the weekends. I'd say that's pretty much it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We'll put your stuff in the description as well.
Yeah, I'll drop an email or Instagram or something like that.
Send me what you want me to add in, and we'll add it for you.
Cool.
Thank y'all. Love you. Cheers. Be safe.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Ben Nevares podcast. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, and all other major podcast hosting platforms. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes.